The stagecoach door opened, and Elena Barnes stepped into the Montana dust with nothing but a satchel and a promise that was about to be broken. She'd traveled 1,000 miles to marry a man who would reject her in front of half the town before the sun set. But this isn't a story about rejection. It's about what happens after. When a desperate woman meets a stubborn rancher, when respect becomes partnership, when 6 impossible days change 2 lives forever in 1884 Montana territory. Where water meant survival and land meant legacy, Elena and Nathan Blackwood would learn that the strongest foundations aren't built on romance. They're built on shared work. On choosing each other when the world says run. On standing firm when everything burns. This is their story. And it starts with humiliation in a cafe, a storm, and a stranger who offered trade instead of charity. Before we begin, tell us where you're from. And buckle up, because this one's a fight. The sun hadn't yet cleared the eastern ridge when Nathan Blackwood stepped onto his porch, coffee steaming in the morning cold. July in Montana territory, high summer. But at this altitude, dawn still carried the memory of winter in its breath. 2,800 acres stretched before him. Rolling grassland that had fought him every step, resisted the plow, killed his first herd during the winter of '79, tested him with drought, wolves, men who wanted what he'd built. He'd bled for this land. Broken bones mending fence in blizzards, calloused hands that would never smooth again. 15 years of sweat crystallized into something a man could stand on and call his own. The Logan property, 800 acres hugging his northern border, still felt new under his stewardship. A year since old James had passed. A year since the will reading that changed everything. To Nathan Blackwood, who worked this valley honest when others schemed. I leave my land, my creek, and my hope that he'll use them better than I did. James Logan's final words. Scratched in shaking handwriting. Witnessed by Judge Parker himself, legal, clean, righteous. And Matthew Wilson had been trying to steal it ever since. Nathan took a long pull of coffee. Bitter. Strong. The way his father had taught him to take it back when this ranch was nothing but a homestead claim and a prayer. Somewhere in the distance, cattle load, his herd. 2,000 head now, most of them fattening on the Logan Creek water that Wilson wanted so badly he could taste it. Let him want, Nathan thought. Wanting and having are different countries. He'd built this empire on a code his father had beaten into him with words harder than fists. A man protects what's his. Land, family, word, you give those away. You got nothing left worth calling yourself a man. Nathan Blackwood had never given anything away. He sure as hell wasn't starting now. The screen door creaked behind him. Jacob Thornton, foreman, friend, the closest thing Nathan had to family since Sarah left, stepped onto the porch with his own cup of coffee. Morning, boss, Jacob. Nathan didn't turn. Just kept watching the sunrise paint his land in shades of gold and amber. Jacob leaned against the railing, 55 years old. Weathered as the fence posts he'd spent a lifetime mending. You heading into town today? Need supplies. Flour, coffee, ammunition. Want company? You've got the herd to manage. Tom and Emmett can handle it for a day. Jacob's voice was careful. Might be good to have backup. Wilson's been talking. Nathan's jaw tightened. Wilson's always talking. This time he's talking to the territorial surveyor. About water rights. About whether Logan Creek is legally part of your property or if it's communal access. The deed's clear. Deed's only good as the judge enforcing it. And the new territorial judge, Arson. He's rumored to be friendly with Wilson's family. Jacob sipped his coffee. Just saying. Might be good not to ride into town alone. Show folks you've got support, Nathan considered. Jacob was right. Wilson had been escalating his attacks for months. Legal maneuvering, whisper campaigns, pressure on the town council. All of it designed to paint Nathan as unfit to hold the Logan property. All right, Nathan agreed. We'll both go. Leave after breakfast. Be back by sunset. Jacob nodded. I'll tell the hands. He disappeared back inside. Nathan remained on the porch, watching his land wake up. Watching the empire he'd built with bleeding hands and unbroken will. An empire Matthew Wilson wanted to take. Over Nathan's dead body. The ride into Clearwater took 90 minutes at an easy pace. Nathan let his gelding set the tempo. No rush. Town wasn't going anywhere. Saturdays meant supplies. Flour, coffee, ammunition. The staples that kept a ranch running. Jacob rode beside him, rifle across his saddle. Not expecting trouble, but ready for it, they always were. Clearwater looked the same as it always did. One main street, Wooden buildings raw from frontier construction. The church steeple still leaned slightly left from the windstorm in '82. Nobody had bothered to fix it. God didn't seem to mind. The town bustled with weekend activity. Ranch hands buying supplies. Wives shopping for Sunday dinner. Children running between buildings, chasing each other with sticks and imagination. Normal. Peaceful. Until Nathan heard the raised voices coming from the cafe. He reined up outside Peterson's general store. Jacob did the same. "You hear that?" Jacob asked. Nathan nodded. The voice was familiar. Smooth, educated, deliberately loud Matthew Wilson. And another voice, female. Trying very hard not to cry, Nathan should walk past. Get his supplies. Mind his business. Wilson's cruelty wasn't his concern, except the other voice. That desperate, humiliated voice belonged to a woman, and Nathan Blackwood's father had taught him. A man who stands by while a woman's being hurt is no man at all. "Wait here," Nathan said. "Boss." But Nathan was already dismounting, tying his horse to the rail. Walking toward the cafe with purpose in every step, Jacob followed. Of course he did. 10 years of loyalty meant Jacob followed Nathan into every kind of trouble. The cafe was packed. Saturday crowd. Ranchers, merchants, wives. All of them had stopped eating to watch the show Matthew Wilson was performing at the corner table. Wilson stood, tall, handsome, dressed in a suit that cost more than most men in this room earned in 6 months. His smile was practiced. Political. The smile of a man who'd never had to beg for anything because he'd been born owning it all. Across from him sat a woman. Nathan noticed her hands first, folded in her lap, clutching each other like they were the only solid thing in a world coming apart. Her dress was gray, simple, mended in places. Travel-worn, her face, pale, set in careful dignity that was cracking at the edges. She looked young, mid-20s maybe. Brown hair escaping from pins meant to contain it. Exhaustion in every line of her body. But her eyes, brown, direct, rimmed with red from crying she'd done in private. Held something else. And good, Nathan thought. Anger meant fight left. "I don't think you understand, Miss Barnes." Wilson's voice carried to every corner of the room. Intentional. This wasn't a private conversation. It was a public execution. When I advertised for a wife, I expected a woman of modest means. Not a beggar with a carpet bag. Gasps rippled through the cafe. Nathan went very still. Mail order bride. This woman had come all the way to Montana Territory to marry Matthew Wilson. And Wilson was rejecting her. Publicly. In front of half the town, the woman, Miss Barnes, kept her voice low. "I was honest about my circumstances, Mr. Wilson. I told you I'd lost my position. You told me you were a seamstress who'd fallen on temporary hardship." Wilson cut her off. "You didn't mention you'd arrive with literally nothing. One bag. No trousseau. No funds to contribute to the household." He leaned forward, still smiling. "I'm building something here, Miss Barnes. I need a wife who elevates my standing. Not another mouth to feed and clothe like some charity case." The woman's knuckles went white. Nathan felt something hot and ugly coil in his chest. Jenkins, one of Wilson's ranch hands, sat at a nearby table with 3 others. All of them watching, grinning, enjoying the show their boss was putting on. So, Wilson straightened, buttoned his coat. "I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding. I'll provide you with return passage to Philadelphia, of course. I'm not without compassion." He said it loud enough for the whole room to hear. Generous Matthew Wilson, giving the poor girl train fare after humiliating her in front of half the county. Miss Barnes stood slowly, carefully, like she was holding herself together with wire and willpower. "That won't be necessary, Mr. Wilson." Her voice didn't shake. Nathan gave her credit for that. "I'll find my own way." She picked up her bag, worn leather, buckles tarnished, and walked toward the door. Every eye in the cafe tracked her. Nathan watched Wilson, saw the satisfaction in his smile. This hadn't been about rejecting an unsuitable bride. This had been about power. Wilson had wanted an audience, wanted witnesses, wanted everyone in Clearwater to see him discard a woman, like she was a bad business investment. Proof of his superiority, his discernment, his right to judge and find wanting. The door closed behind Miss Barnes. Conversation slowly resumed. Forks scraped plates. Coffee cups clinked. Wilson sat back down, accepting congratulations from Jenkins. "Dodged a bullet there, sir." She looked like trouble anyway. "Desperate women always are," Wilson replied smoothly. "They'll say anything, promise anything, just for security. Can't build a future on that kind of foundation." Nathan's hands clenched into fists. Jacob touched his arm. "Warning, don't." Nathan knew he was right. This wasn't his business, wasn't his fight, but his father's voice, always his father's voice, whispered something different. A man who'd shame a woman for poverty has no claim to the word. Nathan pushed through the cafe door into the afternoon sunlight. Miss Barnes was already gone. Jacob followed him out. "What are you doing?" "Getting our supplies." "Then going home." Nathan's voice was flat. "That woman isn't my concern." But even as Nathan said it, he knew it was a lie, because he'd seen the look in her eyes. The desperate dignity of someone who'd gambled everything and lost. He'd worn that look himself once, after his father died, and the creditors circled, and Nathan had to decide whether to fight for this land or let it go. He'd chosen to fight. Wonder what she'd choose. Nathan found her 3 hours later. Not intentionally. He'd finished his business in town. Supplies loaded, brief conversation with Judge Parker about a fence dispute, and was riding the northern route home when he spotted her. A small figure trudging along the side of the road. Gray dress. One bag. Walking away from clear water like she had somewhere to be. She didn't. Nathan knew that walk. The walk of someone with no destination. Just movement. Just getting away from the thing that hurt. He'd walked like that himself once. He reined his horse to a walk, coming up behind her slow so he wouldn't startle her. Jacob had ridden ahead to check the northern fence line, so it was just Nathan and this woman and the empty road stretching between mountains. Miss Barnes. She stopped. Turned. Up close, he could see she was younger than he'd thought. 26, maybe 27. Brown hair escaping from pins, dust on her hem. Exhaustion in every line of her body. But her eyes, brown direct, rimmed with red from crying she'd done in private, held something else, defiance. She wasn't broken yet. "Good, Mr." She waited for his name. Blackwood. Nathan Blackwood. Recognition flickered. "You were at the cafe." "I was. Did Mr. Wilson send you?" "No, ma'am. I don't run errands for Matthew Wilson." Nathan kept his voice neutral. Factual, something in his tone made her relax slightly. "Then what do you want?" "Fair question." Nathan looked down the road. 4 miles back to clear water. 20 miles to the next town. Storm clouds gathering in the west like a fist closing. "Where you headed?" Helena said with more confidence than the situation warranted. "That's 60 miles north. I'm aware. You planning to walk it?" Her jaw set. "If I have to." Nathan studied her. Proud. Stubborn. Broke. Definitely broke. No woman walked 60 miles in worn boots unless she had no other choice. The leather was cracking at the seams. The soles worn thin enough he could see her stockings through the gaps. She'd been walking on those boots for a long time. Probably since Philadelphia. "How much money you got?" Her chin lifted. "That's not your concern. It is if you're planning to walk through my northern pasture in the dark and get yourself trampled by my herd. I'll stay on the road. Road cuts through my land for 3 miles. Nathan shifted in his saddle. "And there's weather coming. You won't make 5 miles before that storm hits." As if on SNU, thunder rumbled in the distance. Miss Barnes glanced at the clouds, calculation in her eyes. Weighing pride against survival. "I appreciate your concern, Mr. Blackwood. But I've managed this long without charity. Not offering charity." Her eyebrows rose. Nathan made a decision. Probably stupid. Jacob would tell him it was stupid. But his father's voice had quieted, and another voice. Older, deeper. The voice that remembered when this valley was built by people, helping people. Because there was no other way to survive. That voice was louder now. "My housekeeper left 6 months back. Married a railroad man. House has been falling apart since. Garden's overgrown. Accounts are a mess." He met her eyes. "You said you were a seamstress. You keep books?" Yes. I worked at a mercantile in Philadelphia. Managed their accounts for 2 years. "Cook?" "Yes." "Garden?" "My mother taught me." Nathan nodded. 1 week. "You work, I pay room, board, and wages. After that, you decide if you want to stay or move on. Either way, you'll have enough money to get to Helena proper. With a roof over your head until then." Miss Barnes stared at him like he'd spoken Chinese. "Why would you help me?" "I'm not helping you. I'm hiring you." Nathan kept his voice flat. "Business. I need the work done. You need money and shelter. That's trade, not charity." Thunder again. Closer now, the wind picked up, carrying the smell of rain and ozone. 1 week, she repeated slowly. 7 days. Then you're free to go with my recommendation, and enough wages to start fresh wherever you want. The first fat raindrops began to fall. Miss Barnes looked at the sky, at her bag, at the road stretching empty in both directions. No towns, no shelter, no options. Just Nathan Blackwood and his offer, trade, he'd said. Not charity, honest work for honest pay. The first clean thing anyone had offered her since stepping off that stagecoach. "All right," she said finally. "1 week, and I work for my keep. No favors, no debt, agreed. And if I want to leave before the week's up, doors open. I don't keep people against their will." She searched his face for the lie, the trap, the thing men like Matthew Wilson always hid behind generous offers. Nathan waited. He'd made his offer. Rest was up to her. The rain started in earnest. Miss Barnes nodded once. "Very well." 1 week, Nathan dismounted, offered his hand. She hesitated, propriety warring with pragmatism, then took it. Her grip was firm. Work roughened. The hand of a woman who'd done more than sewing in her life. He helped her onto his horse, handed up her bag, then swung up behind her. "Name's Elena, by the way," she said as they started north. "Elena Barnes. Nathan." They rode in silence through the gathering storm. The rain came harder, cold and punishing, soaking through Nathan's coat, through Elena's thin dress. But neither of them spoke. Elena because she was trying to process what had just happened. How her life had changed in the span of 3 sentences. Nathan because he was wondering what the hell he'd just done. Hired a stranger. A woman who'd been publicly rejected by his enemy, who'd bring gossip and speculation down on his head. The moment Jacob and the ranch hands saw her, Jacob was going to have words, probably strong ones. But Nathan had made his choice. And Nathan Blackwood didn't unmake choices just because they were difficult. Behind them, clear water disappeared into the rain. Ahead, the Blackwood ranch waited. And somewhere in between, in the space of soaked clothes and uncertain futures, Elena Barnes stopped being Matthew Wilson's rejected bride and became something else. Something neither she nor Nathan had words for yet, but something real nonetheless. The Blackwood homestead sat in a valley cupped by pine-covered hills. 2-story log structure, solid, built to last. Barn to the east, corrals beyond that. Garden plot overgrown, just like Nathan had said, struggling against the weeds. But even through the rain, Elena could see the care underneath the neglect. This wasn't some bachelor's shack thrown together with spit and hope. This was a home. Someone had built it to mean something. The logs were fitted tight, no gaps for wind to whistle through. The roof was solid, cedar shakes that would last 20 years. The porch wrapped around 2 sides, providing shelter and a place to sit on summer evenings. A woman had designed this house, Elena realized, or a man who understood that a home needed to be more than functional. It needed to be livable. Nathan reined up in front of the barn. "Wait here." He dismounted, disappeared inside. Returned moments later leading a second horse. Saddled, ready. "For tomorrow," he explained, helping Elena down. Her legs were numb from the ride. She stumbled slightly. Nathan caught her elbow, steadied her. "You'll need to ride out to the garden. Too far to walk every day." Her dress was soaked through, hair plastered to her skull. She was shivering. Though whether from cold or delayed shock from the day's events, she couldn't say. Nathan noticed. Of course he did. "House is open. Oftnamas lid in the main room. Matches on the mantel. Get dry. I'll see to the horses. I can help. You can get inside before you catch pneumonia." Not unkind, just firm. "There's a spare room upstairs, second door on the right. Trunk in there with some of my sister's old things. Help yourself to whatever fits." Elena wanted to protest. Didn't like taking things she hadn't earned. But her teeth were chattering now, and pride was a luxury she couldn't afford. She'd learned that lesson the hard way in Philadelphia, when the factory closed and the landlord came for rent. When choosing between pride and survival meant choosing survival every time. "Thank you," she managed. Nathan was already leading the horses into the barn. "Thank me by not dying of cold your first night." Bad for business, despite everything. The humiliation in the cafe, the desperate walk, the storm. Elena felt her mouth twitch, almost a smile. She grabbed her bag and ran for the house. The door was unlocked. She pushed it open and stepped into warmth. The main room was exactly what Nathan had described. Large stone fireplace dominating one wall. Comfortable chairs, worn but sturdy. Bookshelf lined with volumes that looked actually read, not just decorative. Table for 6. Kitchen area to the back. Everything clean but obviously maintained by someone who valued function over flair. A man's space. Practical, efficient, no wasted movement, but also comfortable. Like someone had cared enough to make it more than just shelter. Elena found the matches on the mantel. Lit the fire Nathan had laid that morning. Watched the flames catch and spread. The warmth hit her like a physical thing. She hadn't realized how cold she'd been. Not just today. For months, maybe years. Cold in her cramped Philadelphia boarding house with walls so thin she could hear the couple next door fighting every night. Cold in the factory before it closed, fingers from the machines. Cold in the weeks after, when the landlord came for rent she couldn't pay, and eviction became inevitable. Matthew Wilson's advertisement had been her last hope. Rancher seeks bride, established homestead. Seeking companion of good character. She'd been honest in her letters. Told him about losing her job. Her parents' death 3 years prior. Her situation. He'd written back with warmth and understanding. Your honesty is refreshing, Miss Barnes. I value character over capital. A good woman is worth more than gold. Lies. All of it lies. He'd wanted an investment. A wife who came with money to expand his holdings. And when Elena arrived with nothing but a satchel and the truth, well, she'd seen what happened then. Elena climbed the stairs to the spare room. It was small, clean. A narrow bed with a patchwork quilt. Washstand with a pitcher and basin. Window overlooking the northern hills where lightning was still dancing. The trunk sat at the foot of the bed. Elena hesitated. Opening someone else's belongings felt wrong. But Nathan had given permission, and staying in wet clothes was stupid. She lifted the lid. Inside. Dresses, shawls, a coat. Simple but well made. The kind of clothes a rancher's daughter would wear. Practical. Durable. At the very bottom, wrapped in tissue paper, a blue dress, finer than the others. Sunday dress, maybe. Elena lifted it carefully. The stitching was exquisite. Hand done. Whoever Nathan's sister was, she had skill. Had, past tense. Nathan had said his housekeeper left. Didn't mention where his sister had gone. None of your business, Elena reminded herself. She chose the plainest dress. Brown cotton, slightly too large but serviceable. And changed quickly. Hung her grey dress by the window to dry. Wrung out her hair as best she could. Downstairs, she could hear Nathan moving around. The thud of boots. The scrape of a chair. He was waiting for her, to explain the rules, probably. The expectations. What he wanted in exchange for shelter and wages. Elena took a deep breath, smoothed the borrowed dress, and went downstairs to face her new employer. Nathan stood at the stove, frying eggs in a cast-iron skillet. He'd changed into dry clothes. Work shirt rolled to the elbows. Hair damp from washing at the pump. He glanced up as she entered. Better? Much. Thank you. Sit. He nodded toward the table where he'd already set out a plate, cup, fork. Coffee's hot. Elena poured herself a cup. Strong enough to strip paint. She took a careful sip. What time do you start work? 4:30 in summer. Cattle don't care about sleep schedules. 4:30. Elena had thought herself an early riser back in Philadelphia. Clearly, ranch life operated on different terms. Nathan slid eggs onto her plate, added bacon and a thick slice of bread. Eat, then we'll discuss arrangements. They ate in silence. Elena used the time to study Nathan Blackwood more carefully than she'd been able to on the road. Mid-30s, she guessed. Tall, over 6 feet. Broad-shouldered from years of physical work. His hands were scarred. Knuckles misshapen from breaks that hadn't healed quite right. Calluses layered on calluses, hands that had built things. Broken things. Held things together through sheer force of will. His face was weathered but not old. Lines at the corners of his eyes from squinting at horizons. A short beard neatly trimmed. Gray eyes that assessed without judging. He looked like the kind of man who didn't waste words. Who said what he meant and meant what he said. Elena found that strangely comforting after Matthew Wilson's practiced charm. Finally, Nathan set down his fork. Ground rules? All right. You work 6 days a week. Sundays are yours to do as you please. I pay $5 a week plus room and board. At the end of the week, you decide if you want to stay on. If you do, we renegotiate terms. If you don't, I give you your wages and a letter of recommendation. Fair? Fair. Work includes house management, cooking, garden when the weather allows, and keeping my accounts organized. I run 2,000 head of cattle on 3,000 acres. The books are complicated. I managed a mercantile's accounts for 2 years. I can handle complicated. Nathan nodded. My foreman Jacob lives in the bunkhouse with 2 hands, Emmett and Tom. They're good men, respectful. But if any of them make you uncomfortable, you tell me immediately. Understood? Understood. This house has 2 bedrooms upstairs. You'll have the spare room. I keep the other. Door locks from the inside. You use it. His voice was firm. I don't care what people in town might say about propriety. You're an employee. You're entitled to privacy and safety. Elena felt something tight in her chest loosen slightly. Thank you. Don't thank me. It's basic decency. Nathan stood, collected their plates. One more thing. Matthew Wilson is going to hear about you being here. Probably by tomorrow. He's going to have opinions. Maybe send someone around to check on the situation. I'm not afraid of Matthew Wilson. Maybe you should be. Nathan's voice was serious. Wilson's not just some petty tyrant, Elena. He's dangerous. He's got money, influence, and a mean streak wide as this valley. And he doesn't forget slights. Hiring me is a slight? Taking you in after he publicly rejected you? Yeah. He'll see that as a direct challenge to his authority. Elena absorbed that. Then why did you do it? Nathan was quiet for a long moment. Because watching a man humiliate a woman for being poor turned my stomach, he said finally. And because I needed help. And because? He stopped. Because? Nathan met her eyes. Because you were walking away from that cafe like you still had fight left. Most people, Wilson breaks, they stay broke. You didn't. He moved to the kitchen. Started washing dishes. That kind of stubborn determination. I respect it. Figure anyone who can walk 4 miles in a storm, rather than beg for mercy, deserves a better shot than Matthew Wilson gave her. Elena stood, joined him at the wash basin, took a towel, started drying while he washed. They worked in silence. It should have felt awkward, this domestic intimacy with a man she'd known barely 3 hours. But somehow, it didn't. It felt easy, like they'd found a rhythm that worked without having to discuss it. The accounts are in the desk in the main room, Nathan said as he dried the last plate. I'll show you tomorrow. For now, get some rest. Tomorrow starts early. Elena nodded. Nathan, he turned, thank you. For today. For this, she gestured vaguely at the clean room, the full stomach, the borrowed dress. I won't let you down. I know, he said simply. You wouldn't have agreed to 1 week if you planned to do half measures. He was right. Elena Barnes had never done anything halfway in her life. She wasn't about to start now. Dawn came early. Elena woke to birdsong and the smell of coffee drifting up from below. She dressed quickly in another of Sarah's dresses. This one a faded blue that fit better than yesterday's brown, and made her way downstairs. Nathan stood at the stove, frying eggs in the same cast-iron skillet from last night. He'd already been outside. His boots were muddy, hair damp from washing at the pump. Morning. He nodded toward the table where he'd set out a plate, cup, fork. Coffee's hot. Morning. Elena poured herself a cup. What time did you start? 4:30, like I said. Cattle don't sleep in. He slid eggs onto her plate, added bacon and bread. Eat. Then I'll show you around. You'll need to know the layout if you're managing the house. They ate quickly, efficiently. Elena noticed Nathan's movements. Economical, practiced. No waste motion. Everything done with purpose. He caught her watching. Raised an eyebrow. Sorry, she said. I was just thinking. You don't look like most ranchers I've read about. What do I look like? Like you'd be more comfortable with a book than a branding iron. Nathan's mouth quirked. Almost a smile. I can manage both. My father believed a man should be able to think and work. Said ignorance was a choice, not a condition. He sounds wise. He was hard. But fair. Nathan stood, collected their plates. Come on. Daylight's burning. The tour took an hour. Nathan showed her the garden first. 2 acres of potential choked by weeds and neglect. The soil was rich, dark, good drainage. Whoever had laid out this garden knew what they were doing. This was my mother's pride, Nathan said, his voice carrying a note Elena hadn't heard before. Something softer. After she died when I was 12, Sarah kept it going. Since Sarah left 2 years ago, he shrugged. I keep the house fed. But the rest has gone wild. Elena knelt, examining the soil more closely, testing its texture between her fingers. I can fix this. It's a lot of work. I grew up fixing things other people gave up on. She stood, brushing dirt from her hands. Give me 2 weeks and you'll have vegetables worth eating. Nathan studied her with that assessing look he'd given her yesterday on the road. All right, garden's yours. You need tools. They're in the barn. Seeds are in the cold cellar. My mother saved seeds every year. Some of them might still be viable. I'll check today. He led her to the barn next. 6 stalls, 4 of them occupied by horses that watched her with mild curiosity. The space was clean, organized. Tools hung in precise order. Everything had a place. Everything was maintained. This wasn't just a working barn. This was a barn owned by a man who took pride in his work. This is where I found you yesterday, Nathan said, gesturing to a corner stall. Soaked through, half dead on your feet. Elena remembered. The desperation, the storm. the bone-deep exhaustion that had dropped her onto a hay bale like a puppet with cut strings. "I'm grateful you didn't just throw me back out." Thought about it. His tone was dry. Then I figured a woman stubborn enough to walk 4 miles in a storm might be stubborn enough to actually fix my accounts. Speaking of accounts, office is in the house. "I'll show you after we finish the rounds." They walked the property for another hour. Nathan pointing out fence lines, water sources, the boundaries between his original homestead and the Logan property he'd inherited. He talked as they walked. About the land, the cattle, the careful balance required to keep a ranch this size profitable. Elena listened, asked questions, made mental notes. She was starting to understand the scope of what Nathan had built here, not just acres and cattle, but a complete operation. Feed contracts, breeding programs, market timing. This was a business, a complicated one, and from what Nathan was saying, carefully, without complaint, it was also a vulnerable one. The Logan property changed everything, Nathan said as they stopped at the creek that fed his northern pasture. 800 acres. Good water. Excellent grazing. But Matthew Wilson wanted it. Wilson wants everything. Nathan's voice hardened. He's been trying to break that will for a year. Claims I manipulated James Logan. That the old man wasn't in his right mind when he signed, was he? Sharp as a tack until the day he died, Nathan's jaw set. James left me that land because he trusted me to be a steward, not an exploiter. He knew Wilson would just fold it into his empire. Use it to control the valley's water access. Elena looked at the creek. Clear water flowing over smooth stones. Life-giving. Essential. Control the water, control the cattle market, she said quietly. Exactly. Nathan turned to face her. That's why Wilson's been escalating. Legal challenges. Pressure on the town council. Rumors about my character, and now he'll use me as another weapon. Proof that you're morally unfit to hold the Logan property. He'll try. Nathan met her eyes. I want you to understand what you're walking into, Elena. This isn't just about housekeeping and accounts. By being here, you're part of a war Wilson and I have been fighting for a year, I understand, do you? His voice was serious. Because once folks in town know you're here, the gossip will start, the speculation. Wilson will make sure everyone knows you're Matthew Wilson's rejected bride living under Nathan Blackwood's roof. Let him. Elena's voice was firm. I didn't do anything wrong. Neither did you. We have a business arrangement. If people choose to see something shameful in that, that's their failure of imagination, not mine. Something shifted in Nathan's expression. Approval, maybe. Or respect. You really don't do half measures, do you? Never have. They walked back to the house in companionable silence. Inside, Nathan showed her the desk. Heavy oak, wedged into a corner of the main room. Ledgers spread across its surface in organized chaos. 3 years of accounts, he said, some in my handwriting, some in Sarah's. Recent months are less organized. I've been managing alone and it shows. Elena sat down, opened the first ledger, immediately saw the problem. The math was sound, but the organization was chaos. Feed costs mixed with cattle sales. Equipment purchases next to property taxes. No clear categories, no running totals. No way to see at a glance whether the ranch was profitable or bleeding money. How bad? Nathan asked. Survivable. But barely. Elena flipped through pages. Give me the day. I'll have a better picture by evening. You need anything. Just quiet. And maybe more coffee. Nathan smiled. I can manage that. He left her to her work. Elena rolled up her sleeves and dove into the numbers. By noon, Elena had reorganized 2 years of accounts. The picture that emerged was troubling. Nathan wasn't broke, but he wasn't comfortable either. The ranch generated steady income from cattle sales. But expenses, feed, equipment, wages for Jacob and the hands, ate most of the profit. What remained went back into improvements. New fencing, breeding stock, the slow, grinding work of building an empire 1 acre at a time. There was no cushion. One bad season, drought, disease, market collapse, and the Blackwood Ranch would be in serious trouble, and Matthew Wilson knew it. That's why he wanted the Logan property so badly, not just for the land itself, but for the water. Control the water, starve Nathan's herd, force him to sell at Wilson's price, or watch 800 head of cattle die of thirst. Elena set down her pen. She'd seen this kind of warfare before, in Philadelphia. Factory owners squeezing suppliers, landlords pricing out tenants to make room for higher-paying renters, the strong consuming the weak. It always came down to who had more resources, more patience, more willingness to destroy the other side. Matthew Wilson had money, influence, Political connections. Nathan had, what? Land he'd bled for. A code he wouldn't break. And stubborn refusal to bend. Was that enough? Elena didn't know. But she knew one thing. If Nathan Blackwood was going to fight Matthew Wilson, he'd do it with clean books and accurate numbers. The rest, whether it was enough to win, that wasn't her concern. Not yet, anyway. She stood, stretching muscles cramped from sitting. The door opened. A man entered. Older, mid-50s. Weathered face, salt and pepper beard. He stopped short when he saw Elena. Who the hell are you? Elena straightened. Elena Barnes. Mr. Blackwood hired me yesterday as his housekeeper. The man's eyes narrowed. Did he now? And you are? Jacob Thornton. Foreman. He crossed his arms. Been working this ranch 10 years. Never heard Nathan mention hiring a housekeeper. It was a recent decision, I'll bet it was. Jacob's tone was skeptical. You're the woman Wilson rejected. Saw you at the cafe yesterday? Yes, and now you're here. Working for Nathan. Jacob shook his head. This is a mistake, Mr. Thornton. You don't understand what you're walking into, Miss Barnes. Nathan and Wilson have been at each other's throats for a year. You being here, it's fuel on a fire that's already burning too hot. So I should leave? Let Mr. Wilson dictate where I can work. I'm saying you should think about what your presence does to Nathan's position. Wilson will use this. Turn it into evidence that Nathan's morally unfit to hold the Logan property. Elena met Jacob's eyes. Mr. Blackwood explained that to me yesterday. I'm staying anyway. You're stubborn, so I've been told. Jacob studied her for a long moment. Then his expression softened slightly. All right, you want to stay, that's between you and Nathan. But know this, I'm watching. You hurt him, you answer to me. Understood? Understood. And Mr. Thornton? Yeah? I don't plan to hurt anyone. I plan to work. Earn my keep. And help Mr. Blackwood in whatever way I can. Jacob nodded slowly. We'll see. Actions matter more than words out here. He turned to leave, paused at the door. The accounts, he said. You figure anything out? Your feed supplier is overcharging. Has been for years. Jacob's eyebrows rose. Anderson? If that's his name, yes. He's charging premium rates for standard quality. You're losing at least 15% on every purchase. Huh, Jacob processed that. Nathan, no, I'll tell him when he comes in. But yes, I found several areas where costs could be reduced without sacrificing quality. Good. Jacob's tone was grudging. Maybe you'll be useful after all, he left. Elena returned to the desk, but Jacob's words stayed with her. You're walking into a war. She knew. But what choice did she have? Go back to Philadelphia with no job, no home, no prospects. Try to make it to Helena with 23 cents and worn boots? No, better to stay here. Work honestly. Build something. Even if that something was just 7 days of employment before moving on. At least it was forward motion. At least it was choice, not surrender. Nathan returned at sunset, dusty and tired. Elena had dinner ready. Venison stew from preserved meat in the cellar, biscuits from the last of the good flour, greens from the few surviving plants in the garden. She'd also cleaned the main room, swept the porch, and started a list of household repairs that needed attention. Nathan washed at the pump outside, came in with damp hair and cleaner hands. Smells good, he said. They ate at the table. Same efficient silence as breakfast. But tonight, Elena noticed different details. The way Nathan's shoulders relaxed when he came into the house. Like crossing the threshold let him set down a weight he carried everywhere else. The careful way he ate. Not rushed, but deliberate. A man who'd known hunger and didn't take food for granted. The glances he gave the room, noticing the swept floor, the organized desk. The small improvements Elena had made without asking permission. Jacob came by, Elena said finally. Nathan's fork paused. What did he say? That hiring me was a mistake. That I'm complicating your fight with Wilson. He's probably right, but you're not sending me away. No, Nathan met her eyes. You agreed to 1 week. I keep my word, even if it costs you. Especially then, he set down his fork. The accounts. You find anything? Elena pulled out the summary she'd written, handed it across the table. Nathan read in silence. His expression darkened with each line. Anderson's been robbing me for 5 years, he said finally. Looks that way. I found 2 suppliers in Helena who charge 20% less for equivalent quality. I can write to them tomorrow. Get quotes, do it. Nathan folded the paper, tucked it in his shirt pocket. What else? Your cattle sales. You're selling at market rate, but you could get better prices if you held the herd 2 weeks longer. Let them fatten on summer grass before the September auction. Sarah always sold in August. Sarah was cautious. Sometimes caution costs money. Nathan considered that. You're not cautious? I'm practical. There's a difference, he smiled then, a real smile. The kind that changed his whole face from hard-edged rancher to something younger. Less burdened. Yeah, he said. I'm starting to see that. Elena felt warmth spread through her chest. Dangerous warmth. The kind that made her forget this was a business arrangement. 1 week, temporary? She turned away. Started clearing the table. I should get some rest. Early start tomorrow, Elena. She paused. For today. For the accounts. He gestured vaguely at the clean room, the organized desk. All of it. You're paying me. No thanks necessary. Still, his voice was quiet. It's been a while since this place felt like a home instead of just headquarters. Elena's throat tightened. She wanted to say something. Acknowledge what he'd just offered. The vulnerability in admitting loneliness. But words felt too big. Too complicated, so she just nodded and climbed the stairs to the spare room. Behind her, she heard Nathan banking the fire for the night, his boots on the floorboards. The soft click of his bedroom door closing. Elena lay down in the narrow bed. Outside, coyotes called to each other across the valley. Inside, the house settled into silence. She'd been here one day. 6 more to go, then she could leave. Start fresh in Helena with money in her pocket and a reference from Nathan Blackwood. That was the plan. So why did the thought of leaving already feel like losing something? Elena closed her eyes. Tomorrow would come early, and with it, whatever test Matthew Wilson planned next. But for tonight, for this one night, she was safe. Warm, fed, and for the first time since her parents died, Elena Barnes felt like maybe, just maybe, she'd found a place where she could belong. Even if only for 6 more days, this leaf came slowly. But when it came, it was deep and dreamless. The sleep of someone who'd finally stopped running. At least for now. Outside, on the ridgeline half a mile distant, a rider sat motionless on his horse, watching the Blackwood ranch, watching the lamplight in the upstairs window flicker and die as Elena blew out her candle. Cole Brennan pulled out a spyglass, scanned the property one more time, then turned his horse and rode hard toward the Wilson ranch. Matthew Wilson would want to know. The rejected bride had found shelter under Nathan Blackwood's roof. Wilson was going to be very interested in that information. Very interested indeed. The telegram arrived on the 4th morning. Elena was kneading bread dough when she heard the horse approaching fast. Too fast for a casual visitor. She wiped flour from her hands and moved to the window. A boy, couldn't be more than 12, reined up hard in front of the house. Dismounted while his pony was still moving, Nathan emerged from the barn, Jacob beside him. Both men's hands went instinctively to their rifles before recognizing the rider. The boy thrust a yellow envelope at Nathan. Telegram, Mr. Blackwood. From Denver. Man at the office said it was urgent. Nathan fished a coin from his pocket, tossed it to the boy. Tell your pa I said hello. Yes, sir. The boy pocketed the coin, remounted, and galloped back toward town like his tail was on fire. Nathan stood in the yard, staring at the envelope like it might bite him. Jacob said something Elena couldn't hear through the window. Nathan shook his head. Tore open the telegram, read. His entire body went rigid. Elena set down the dough, wiped her hands on her apron, moved to the door. Nathan looked up as she stepped onto the porch. Something in his eyes she hadn't seen before. Fear, not for himself, but the kind of fear a man feels when family is involved, Nathan. Elena kept her voice gentle. What's wrong? He looked at the telegram again, as if reading it twice might change the words. It's from Sarah, he said. His voice was carefully controlled. My sister. She's coming home. Jacob's expression darkened. When? Tomorrow. Afternoon stage, Nathan refolded the telegram with precise movements. Like keeping his hands busy would keep his emotions in check. She says Wilson's filing a claim, that she has evidence, that I need to. He stopped. Read the line again, that I need to do nothing until she arrives. Sarah hasn't been back to Clearwater in 2 years, Jacob said quietly. If she's coming now, I know what it means. Nathan's jaw was set like stone. Elena looked between the two men. What does it mean? Nathan handed her the telegram. Elena read the brief message in careful handwriting. Arriving tomorrow afternoon, stage stop. Wilson filing claim stop. Have evidence stop. Critical you do nothing until I arrive stop. Trust me stop. Sarah, I don't understand, Elena said. What kind of evidence? I don't know. Nathan took the telegram back, tucked it carefully into his shirt pocket. But Sarah doesn't make dramatic gestures. If she's telling me to wait, she's got something. Something important enough to bring her back to a place she swore she'd never see again. The weight of that statement hung in the air. Elena had learned bits and pieces about Sarah over the past 3 days. Nathan's half-sister, younger by 15 years, had left Clearwater 2 years ago under circumstances Nathan wouldn't discuss in detail. But the way he didn't talk about it, the careful silence around her name, told Elena everything she needed to know. Something bad had happened, something involving Matthew Wilson. And Sarah had run rather than face it. "What do you need from me?" Elena asked. Nathan looked surprised. "What? Your sister's coming. I should prepare the house for a guest. Clean your room, fresh linens." "No." Nathan's voice was firm. "Sarah can have the spare room. You stay where you are." "Nathan, I can't take your sister's room when she's—" "You're not taking anything. You're my employee. You have a right to the accommodations we agreed on." His tone left no room for argument. "I'll bunk in the barn while Sarah's here. It's not proper for me to keep the house while 2 women sleep upstairs anyway." Gossip's bad enough already. Elena wanted to protest, but she understood. This wasn't about comfort or convenience. This was about protecting both her reputation and Sarah's. About not giving Matthew Wilson any more ammunition than he already had. "All right," she agreed, "but I'll still prepare for her arrival. Your room will need fresh linens, and I should make something special for dinner tomorrow. A welcome home meal." Nathan's expression softened slightly. "Thank you, Elena." Jacob cleared his throat. "Boss, if Sarah's bringing evidence about Wilson's claim, then we wait until she arrives to discuss it." Nathan's voice was firm, like she asked. "Sarah's smart. If she says wait, we wait, and in the meantime, we work." Same as always. Nathan turned to head back to the barn, then paused. Looked at Elena. "Be careful today. If Wilson hears Sarah's coming back, and he will, news travels fast. He might try something. Don't go far from the house. I was just planning to work on the garden. Take Emmett with you." "I'll tell him to stay close." Nathan's gray eyes were serious. "I'm not trying to frighten you, but Wilson's unpredictable when he feels threatened, and Sarah's return will threaten him." Elena nodded. "I'll be careful." Nathan held her gaze for a moment longer, then nodded once and walked back toward the barn, Jacob following. Elena returned to her bread dough, but her hands shook slightly as she needed. Sarah was coming home, with evidence that could change everything. And Matthew Wilson, somewhere in Clearwater, was about to find out the war Nathan and Wilson had been fighting for a year was about to escalate. Elena could feel it in her bones. The storm was coming, and this time, it wouldn't just be rain. The rest of the day passed in tense preparation. Elena threw herself into work, scrubbed Nathan's bedroom until it gleamed, changed the linens, put fresh wildflowers on the dresser, purple lupine and white columbine from the meadow behind the house. She baked bread, made preserves from the few berries the garden had managed to produce, prepared a stew that would keep until tomorrow's dinner. Keeping busy helped, kept her from thinking too much about what Sarah's arrival might mean, about the evidence she was bringing, about how Matthew Wilson would respond when he learned Nathan's sister had returned. Emmett, young, cheerful, barely 20, stayed close while she worked in the garden, rifle across his lap as he sat on an overturned bucket, whittling a piece of pine into some unrecognizable shape. "You really think Wilson might try something?" Elena asked as she pulled weeds from around the struggling tomato plants. "Probably not." Emmett's knife never stopped moving. "But Nathan doesn't take chances when it comes to his people. And you're his people now, Miss Barnes. Whether you've only been here 3 days or not." "His people," Elena repeated. "That's right. Nathan Blackwood takes care of what's his. Land, cattle, folks who work for him." Emmett grinned. "You signed on for a week. That makes you part of the ranch. And ranch business is Nathan's business." Elena turned back to her weeding, but Emmett's words stayed with her. Nathan Blackwood takes care of what's his. She wasn't his, not really, just an employee, temporary at that. But the way Emmett said it, casual, like it was simple fact, made something warm settle in her chest. The afternoon wore on, hot and still, the kind of Montana summer day where the air felt thick enough to swim through. Elena worked until her back ached and her hands were raw. But the garden, slowly, stubbornly, was starting to look less like wilderness, and more like something intentional, something cultivated, something worth tending. She was gathering her tools when she heard hoofbeats. Multiple riders coming fast. Emmett was on his feet instantly. "Rifle up, Miss Barnes. Get behind me." But it was just Nathan and Jacob returning from the northern fence line. Both covered in dust, both looking grim. Nathan dismounted. Saw Emmett's defensive posture. "Easy. It's just us. Sorry, boss." Heard riders coming fast. "Got cautious?" "Good." Nathan's eyes found Elena. "You all right?" "Fine. What's wrong?" Nathan and Jacob exchanged glances. "Found something at the northern fence," Jacob said. "Someone's been cutting posts. 3 sections down. Cattle drifted onto Wilson's land before we found them." Elena felt cold despite the heat. "Sabotage? Maybe. Hard to prove." Nathan's voice was tight with controlled anger. "Posts could have rotted through. But the brakes are too clean." "Too convenient. Wilson's testing you," Elena said quietly. "Yeah." Nathan pulled off his hat. Ran a hand through sweat-dampened hair. "Seeing how far he can push before I push back." "What did you do?" "Repaired the fence. Brought the cattle back. Told Wilson's foreman, Cole Brennan, that if it happens again we'll have words," the way Nathan said. "Words? Suggested words wouldn't be the half of it. Will he stop?" Elena asked. Nathan's laugh was bitter. "No. He's just getting started." They walked back to the house in silence. Emmett trailing behind with the garden tools. Inside, the bread Elena had baked that morning filled the air with warmth and yeast. The stew simmered on the stove. Everything clean and ordered and domestic. A stark contrast to the violence simmering just beneath the surface. Nathan washed at the basin. Sat at the table. Let the tension drain from his shoulders in visible stages. "Sarah arrives tomorrow," he said finally. "Whatever evidence she's bringing, it better be good. Because Wilson's not going to wait much longer to make his real move." "His real move?" Elena asked. "The fence cutting, the legal maneuvering, that's all prelude. Testing defenses. Looking for weaknesses." Nathan's gray eyes were hard. "But eventually, Wilson will commit. Go all in. And when he does, he didn't need to." Elena understood. When Matthew Wilson finally committed to destroying Nathan Blackwood. It was going to be bloody, metaphorically, and maybe literally. She served dinner in silence. Stew and bread, and the last of the preserved vegetables from the cellar. Nathan ate without tasting, mind clearly elsewhere, planning, calculating, preparing for a war he hadn't wanted but couldn't avoid. After dinner, Elena cleaned while Nathan sat on the porch, rifle across his lap, watching the darkness gather over his land like a promise or a threat. Elena joined him after finishing the dishes. "You should rest. Tomorrow will be difficult. Can't rest." "Not until Sarah's here safe." He glanced at her. "You should sleep. This isn't your fight. I'm here, aren't I?" "That makes it my fight too, Elena." "Don't." She kept her voice gentle but firm. "I know what I signed up for when I agreed to stay. I'm not afraid of Matthew Wilson. And I'm not running just because things get complicated." Nathan was quiet for a long moment. "You're stubborn," he said finally. "So I've been told. It's going to cause me trouble, probably." He smiled then. Small and tired, but real. "Good. I like trouble. Keeps things interesting." They sat together in companionable silence as the stars came out. Tomorrow Sarah would arrive. Tomorrow everything might change. But tonight was just 2 people sitting on a porch, watching the Montana sky turn from blue to black to scattered diamonds. It should have felt wrong. This easy comfort with a man she'd known 4 days. But it didn't. It felt right. And that, more than Wilson's threats, more than Sarah's mysterious evidence. That terrified Elena most of all, because right meant attachment. And attachment meant pain when the inevitable goodbye came. Elena pushed the thought away. Worry about that later. For now, just sit. Just be. Just exist in this moment of peace before the storm. The stage arrived precisely at 3 o'clock the next afternoon. Nathan stood outside the depot, hat in hand, watching the dust cloud approach. Elena had insisted on coming, despite Nathan's suggestion that she stay at the ranch. "Your sister should see you have support," Elena had said firmly. "Not that you're standing alone." Now Nathan was grateful for her presence. Jacob had offered to come too. Moral support. But Nathan had declined. This was family business. Though having Elena beside him, she felt like family somehow, despite the brief time. The stage pulled to a stop in a cloud of dust and the drivers shouted commands. Door opened. A man disembarked first, traveling merchant by the look of his sample case. Then a woman appeared in the doorway. Nathan's breath caught Sarah. But not the Sarah who'd left 2 years ago. That Sarah had been a girl. 17, scared, wounded, running from something she couldn't name. This Sarah stepped down with the confidence of someone who'd been broken and rebuilt herself stronger. She wore a traveling suit of deep green, hair pinned in the latest Denver fashion, gloves, hat, every inch the city lady. But when her eyes found Nathan, they were still his little sister's eyes, brown like their father's, sharp like their mother's, currently filling with tears she was fighting hard to hide. "Nathan," she said. He closed the distance in 3 strides, pulled her into a hug that lifted her off her feet. "Sarah, God, you're really here." She hugged him back fiercely. "Told you I'd come." They separated. Sarah composed herself with visible effort. Then her eyes moved to Elena standing a respectful distance away. And who might this be? Sarah's tone was curious. Assessing, Nathan turned. "Sarah, this is Elena Barnes. She's been working at the ranch, managing the house and accounts." Sarah's eyebrows rose fractionally. She crossed to Elena, extended her hand. "Miss Barnes, a pleasure." Elena shook it. Sarah's grip was firm. "Confident, Mrs. Blackwood. Just Sarah, please. I've never been one for formality." Sarah studied Elena with frank curiosity that was almost unsettling in its directness. "You're the woman Wilson rejected." Heat flooded Elena's cheeks. Of course Sarah would know. Small towns. Gossip traveled faster than telegrams. "I am his loss." Sarah's voice was brisk, matter of fact. "Anyone who'd judge a woman's worth by her luggage is an idiot. And Matthew Wilson, whatever his other qualities, has always been an idiot when it matters." Despite herself, Elena smiled. "I'm beginning to understand that." Sarah turned back to Nathan. "My trunk's on top, and we need to talk." "Somewhere private, the ranch," Nathan agreed. He moved to help the driver unload Sarah's luggage, a substantial trunk that suggested she'd packed for more than a brief visit. "We'll head back now, you can—" "Nathan Blackwood," the voice cut across the depot. Loud, cheerful, deliberately public. Nathan's entire body went rigid. Matthew Wilson approached from the direction of the bank. Expensive suit, despite the summer heat. Practiced smile. Flanked by 2 men Elena recognized. Jenkins and another ranch hand whose name she didn't know. Heard Sarah was coming back to town. Wilson tipped his hat to Sarah with exaggerated courtesy. "Welcome home, Miss Blackwood. You're looking well." Sarah's face could have been carved from stone. "Mr. Wilson, I hope your time in Denver was profitable." Wilson's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Though I'm surprised you'd return to clear water. After our misunderstanding." "There was no misunderstanding, Mr. Wilson." Sarah's voice was ice. "You showed me exactly who you are. I simply chose to leave rather than watch my brother kill you for it." Gasps rippled through the small crowd that had gathered. Saturday afternoon. Plenty of witnesses. This was better than theater. Sarah Blackwood and Matthew Wilson. Face to face for the first time in 2 years, the air crackled with tension. Wilson's smile tightened. Strong words from a woman who fled town in the middle of the night. "I didn't flee. I escaped." Sarah stepped closer. Her voice dropped but carried nonetheless. "There's a difference." Nathan moved between them. "We're leaving, Wilson. You've got business with me? You know where to find me?" "Oh, I do." Wilson's gaze slid to Elena, cold, assessing. "I see you're still harboring strays, Blackwood. First my rejected bride, now your runaway sister. Quite the collection of damaged women you're assembling." Nathan's fist was moving before his brain caught up, but Sarah grabbed his arm, iron grip despite her slender build. "Don't. That's what he wants." Nathan froze, fist still clenched, body vibrating with the effort of restraint. Wilson laughed. "Listen to your sister, Nathan. She's always been the smart one. Pity that intelligence didn't extend to knowing when a man was out of her league." Sarah went white. Elena stepped forward. Couldn't help herself. "You're a coward, Mr. Wilson. You hide behind money and lawyers because you know you'd never survive a fair fight." Wilson's eyes narrowed, focused on Elena with sudden attention. "And you're a penniless nobody who should have stayed in whatever gutter Blackwood pulled you from." He turned back to Nathan. "Town council meets Tuesday. Water allocations are on the agenda. Hope you've been conserving. You're going to need every drop." The threat was clear. Wilson was going after Nathan's water rights, the lifeblood of his northern herd. He walked away. Jenkins and the other man followed, leaving Nathan, Sarah, and Elena standing in a circle of staring townspeople, the weekend crowd that had come for supplies. All of them watching, all of them drinking in every word to repeat over Sunday dinners. By tomorrow, the whole county would know. Sarah Blackwood had returned. Matthew Wilson had confronted Nathan in public, and the war everyone had been watching for a year was about to turn hot. Sarah released Nathan's arm. Let's go home. They loaded the trunk, mounted horses and wagon, rode out of clear water in tense silence. Behind them, the whispers started. Ahead, the Blackwood ranch waited. And between clear water and home, 3 miles of road and gathering darkness, the three of them processed what had just happened. Wilson had declared war, publicly. No more subtle maneuvering, no more legal games played behind closed doors. This was open conflict now, and everyone in the valley knew it. They rode in silence. Sarah sat between Nathan and Elena on the wagon bench, her trunk secured in the back. The easy reunion Nathan had imagined, impossible now. Wilson had poisoned it, like he poisoned everything. Finally, as they turned onto the road leading to the ranch, Sarah spoke. How long has Elena been working for you? 4 days, Nathan said. 4 days. Sarah processed that, glanced at Elena with renewed interest. And Wilson's already using her as ammunition. He uses everything as ammunition, Nathan replied. You know that better than anyone. Sarah was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. Yes, I suppose I do. She turned to Elena. I apologize for what Wilson said back there. You didn't deserve that, neither did you, Elena replied gently. What he implied was true. Sarah's voice was flat, factual. 2 years ago, I was stupid enough to be flattered by Matthew Wilson's attention. Naive enough to believe his lies. And when I finally understood what he really wanted, she stopped, visibly composed herself. Nathan found me before it went too far, but not before it went far enough. The admission hung in the air between them. Elena's chest tightened. I'm sorry. Don't be. I survived. Got stronger. Sarah straightened her shoulders, that city lady composure sliding back into place like armor. And now I'm going to destroy him. Nathan glanced at his sister sharply. What do you mean? I mean I spent 2 years working for Judge Franklin in Denver. Learning law, building connections, and investigating Matthew Wilson. Sarah's voice hardened with each word. Judge Franklin has friends throughout the territory. Men who remember when Wilson's father was building his empire. Men who have questions about how certain deals went through. What kind of questions? Nathan's hands tightened on the reins, the kind that involve forged signatures, falsified land surveys, bribes to territorial officials. Sarah pulled a leather document case from her traveling bag. I have proof, Nathan. Actual, legal, documented proof that Wilson has been defrauding people for years. Nathan nearly drove the wagon off the road. What? 3 separate land transactions where the seller's signature doesn't match their known handwriting. Cattle sales where the bloodline papers were fabricated to inflate prices. And Sarah's smile was cold, sharp as a knife. A receipt for $200 paid to the territorial water inspector, signed by Wilson himself. Payment for consultation services that coincidentally happened 3 days before the inspector ruled in Wilson's favor on a water rights dispute. Elena felt her pulse quicken. That's bribery. That's exactly what it is. Sarah tucked the case back into her bag with careful precision. And I have copies of everything. Judge Franklin already sent the originals to the territorial marshal. Wilson will be arrested within the week. Nathan pulled the wagon to a complete stop. Just sat there, staring at his sister. You've been building a case against Wilson for 2 years, I told you. I got stronger. Sarah met his eyes. No flinching, no apology. He hurt me, Nathan. Tried to steal from both of us. And he's been terrorizing this valley for a decade. Someone needed to stop him. Why didn't you tell me? Because you would have confronted him, made it personal, given him exactly what he wanted. Proof that you're violent and unstable. Evidence he could use to take the Logan property. Sarah's voice gentled slightly. I needed you to stay clean. Let the law handle this. Nathan's jaw worked. Fighting something, anger maybe, or relief. The law takes time. And in the meantime, Wilson's been cutting my fences, spreading lies. Making Elena's life hell just for being associated with me, I know. That's why I came back now. Sarah looked between them. When Mabel Fletcher wrote me about Wilson's council meeting, about him planning to challenge your water rights, I knew he was escalating. Making his final play before the charges came down. How long until he's arrested? Elena asked. Marshall arrives Monday. Wilson will be in custody by Tuesday morning. Sarah's expression was grim, satisfied but wary. But that's also when he's most dangerous. Cornered animals lash out. Nathan nodded slowly, released the brake, got the wagon moving again toward home. Then we prepare for the worst. What's the worst? Elena's question was quiet. Nathan and Sarah exchanged a look. Years of sibling communication passing between them in a glance. Wilson realizing he's about to lose everything, Nathan said quietly, and deciding to take us down with him. They reached the ranch just before sunset. Sarah stood in the yard for a long moment, taking in the place she'd fled 2 years ago. Her eyes lingered on the garden, now cleared and replanted, showing Elena's careful work. The house with its fresh-swept porch. The barn where Nathan had found her that terrible night, curled up in a stall, refusing to speak, clothes torn, eyes empty. "It looks good," she said finally. Her voice was carefully neutral. "Better than when I left. Elena's been working hard," Nathan said, helping her down from the wagon. "Turned the place around in 4 days." Sarah glanced at Elena with new respect. 4 days to undo 6 months of bachelor neglect. "Impressive. I had good material to work with," Elena replied. The house just needed attention. They carried Sarah's trunk inside. Nathan showed her to the spare room, now moved from his room to the smaller bedroom. Fresh linens, wildflowers. The same care Elena had shown every corner of the homestead. Sarah stood in the doorway, visibly moved. "Thank you, Elena. You didn't have to go to this trouble." "It wasn't trouble." Elena smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from the quilt. "Welcome home, Sarah." After Sarah had settled in, they gathered in the main room. Nathan built up the fire despite the summer warmth. Something about the occasion demanded it. Family reuniting, strategies being planned, wars being prepared for. Sarah spread her documents on the table. Legal papers, receipts, affidavits. 2 years of meticulous investigation laid out in neat folders. "This is everything?" Nathan asked, scanning the pages with growing intensity. "Everything that matters." Sarah tapped a thick folder. "Wilson's been systematically defrauding people since his father died and left him the business. Most victims didn't know they'd been cheated. Those who did were too scared to come forward. Wilson's too powerful. Or was. But not anymore," Elena said. "Not anymore," Sarah confirmed. Her voice carried quiet triumph. "Judge Franklin has friends in the territorial government. Men who are very interested in cleaning up corruption." When these documents reached the marshal Monday morning, a sound outside, hoofbeats. Fast, Nathan was on his feet instantly, rifle in hand. "Stay inside." He moved to the door, cracked it open carefully. Jacob burst into the yard, his horse lathered and blowing hard, foam on its chest. It had been ridden hard, very hard, boss. Jacob's voice carried panic. Nathan had never heard from his foreman in 10 years. "North fence. The creek. You need to come now." Nathan was out the door before Jacob finished the sentence. Elena and Sarah exchanged glances, followed. Jacob was breathing hard, words tumbling over each other in his urgency. "Found it an hour ago. Was checking the Logan property line like you asked." "The creek. Boss, someone dammed it. Whole flows diverted onto Wilson's land." Nathan went absolutely still, that terrible stillness that preceded violence. "Show me, Nathan." Sarah started. "Now Jacob." They saddled horses in tense silence. Nathan, Jacob, and 2 ranch hands who'd heard the commotion and come running. Tom and young Emmett. Sarah tried to follow, but Nathan stopped her with a raised hand. "You stay here." With Elena, like hell. Sarah, his voice was iron. Pure command. "You've got evidence that could put Wilson in prison. You're not riding into a potential ambush carrying the only leverage we have." Sarah wanted to argue. Elena could see it in every line of her body, the stubborn set of her jaw that matched Nathan's exactly. But she also saw the logic. "Fine. But you come back safe, Nathan. I didn't spend 2 years building this case just to have you get yourself killed in some stupid confrontation. Plan to come back." Nathan turned to Elena, met her eyes. Something passed between them, concern, trust, an unspoken promise. "Bar the door after we leave. Don't open it for anyone but me or Jacob." Elena nodded, throat too tight to speak. Nathan swung into his saddle. 4 riders, armed, tense. They disappeared into the gathering dusk at a gallop. Sarah and Elena stood in the yard, watching dust settle. Finally, Sarah spoke. "How long have you been in love with my brother?" Elena's breath caught. We've only known each other 4 days." "That's not an answer." Sarah's voice was gentle, not accusing, just observing. Elena was silent, because what could she say? That yes, somewhere between cleaning his house and organizing his ledgers, and working beside him in the garden, somewhere in these 4 impossible days, she'd started falling for Nathan Blackwood. That the thought of him riding into danger made her chest tight and her hands shake? That she'd come to Montana seeking security and found something far more dangerous? "Love, I'm not judging," Sarah said quietly. "I'm asking." Because if you care about Nathan, you should know what you're caught in the middle of. What Wilson's capable of, Nathan told me. About what happened to you, did he tell you all of it? Elena met her eyes. He said Wilson hurt you, that you left rather than force Nathan into violence that would destroy his claim to the Logan property. Sarah nodded slowly. Wilson invited me to his ranch, said he wanted to discuss our future. I was 17, stupid, flattered that a successful man 30 years old would pay attention to me. Her voice went flat, emotionless, the tone of someone reciting facts to avoid feeling them. He had champagne waiting. Said we should celebrate our understanding. I didn't understand what he meant until he locked the door. Elena felt sick. Nathan came looking for me when I didn't come home by midnight. Found me before. Sarah stopped, swallowed hard, before it went as far as Wilson intended, but far enough that I knew what he was, what he'd planned, what he thought he was entitled to, and no one believed you. Wilson said I'd pursued him, that I'd shown up uninvited and thrown myself at him. His housekeeper backed his story, said she'd seen me arrive alone, heard me begging him to marry me. Sarah's laugh was bitter as bile. Money buys loyalty, and witnesses. I'm so sorry, Sarah. Don't be. I survived, got out, built a life in Denver. Sarah's eyes hardened. And now I'm going to make sure Wilson pays for everything he's done. To me, to Nathan, to this entire valley. They went inside, barred the door as Nathan had instructed. Sarah examined the main room with the careful attention of someone cataloging changes. The organized desk, the clean floors, the small touches that transformed a bachelor's headquarters into a home. Fresh curtains on the windows, a vase of wildflowers on the table. Books reorganized by subject instead of thrown haphazardly on shelves. You're good for him, Sarah said abruptly. Elena looked up from stoking the fire. I'm his housekeeper. You're more than that. I can see it in how he looks at you. How you look at him. Sarah sat at the table, fatigue finally showing in her face, the careful composure cracking slightly. Nathan's been alone too long, carrying too much. He needed someone who could share the load. I'm only here for a week. Then I'm moving on to Helena, are you? Sarah's gaze was too knowing, too direct. Because it seems to me you've put down roots awfully fast for someone planning to leave. Elena wanted to deny it, but the words wouldn't come because Sarah was right. Somewhere between arriving with nothing and building something here. Somewhere in these 4 days, Elena had stopped thinking about leaving, started thinking about staying, and that terrified her more than Matthew Wilson ever could. Because staying meant vulnerability, staying meant risk, staying meant opening her heart to the possibility of loss. And Elena Barnes had already lost too much in her 26 years. Her parents, her job, her home, her hope. She'd come to Montana with nothing left to lose, but now, sitting in Nathan Blackwood's house with his sister, waiting for him to return from potential violence, now she had everything to lose. And that was the most dangerous position of all. Nathan and his men reached the creek just as full dark settled over the valley. Jacob was right. Someone had built a crude dam, logs, stones, packed mud, blocking Logan Creek's natural flow. The water, meant for Nathan's northern pasture, now diverted entirely onto Wilson's property. 800 head of cattle. No water. In August heat, they'd start dying within 3 days. Nathan dismounted slowly, deliberately, like moving carefully would keep the rage building in his chest from exploding outward. He walked to the dam, examined the construction, professional work. Not some hasty sabotage. This had taken hours. Planning. Multiple men. Wilson hadn't just cut a fence post. He'd declared open war, boss. Jacob's voice was careful. Worry. What do you want to do? Nathan's hands clenched into fists. Every instinct screamed at him to tear down that dam right now. Restore the water flow. Damn the consequences. But his father's voice, always his father's voice, whispered caution. A man who built through law can't tear down with lawlessness. Not yet. Not yet, Nathan muttered under his breath. Sir? Nathan turned to his men. We document this. Jacob, you ride to Judge Parker's house. Wake him if you have to. I need him to see this before Wilson can claim it's legal construction. And if he won't come, he will. Parker's an honest man. Nathan's voice was grim as winter, and he'll recognize sabotage when he sees it. Tom spoke up. Young, barely 20, voice uncertain. Mr. Blackwood the herd. They'll be desperate for water by morning, I know. Nathan stared at the diverted creek, watching his water, his cattle's lifeblood, flow onto Matthew Wilson's land. We'll drive them to the south pasture tonight. There's a spring there. Not enough for 800 head long term, but it'll keep them alive until we fix this. That's a 12-hour drive in the dark, boss, Jacob warned. Then we better get started. A sound in the darkness. Hoofbeats, multiple horses. Nathan's hand went to his rifle. Positions. His men spread out, taking cover behind trees. Behind the dam itself, 5 riders materialized from the shadows like ghosts, leading them. Cole Brennan, Wilson's enforcer, sat his horse with casual confidence. The 4 men with him spread out in a loose semicircle, not quite threatening, but close, very close. Evening, Blackwood, Cole said. His voice was Tennessee smooth, dangerous as a copperhead in tall grass. Problem with your water? Nathan kept his rifle low, but ready. This dam's illegal, Brennan. Creek's part of the Logan property. Deeds clear. Deeds in dispute. Cole grinned, teeth white in the darkness. And until the court rules, Mr. Wilson's just protecting his interests. Can't have your cattle wandering onto his land, drinking his water, now can we? It's not his water. That's for a judge to decide. Not you. Cole's hand rested casually on his pistol. We're just here to make sure the dam stays intact until the legal situation's resolved. You telling me to leave my own property? I'm telling you that dam stays put until the court says otherwise. Cole's voice hardened, and any attempt to remove it will be considered destruction of property. Mr. Wilson will press charges. Have you arrested for vandalism? Maybe worse. The 4 men with Cole shifted, hands moving to weapons ready. Nathan's men did the same. The night air crackled with potential violence. Jacob's voice was low. Urgent, boss. We're outnumbered, Nathan knew. 5 against 4, and Cole Brennan had a reputation. Ex-cavalry scout, fast with a gun, killed 3 men in a saloon fight in Cheyenne and walked away without a scratch. Not someone to tangle with unless you were ready to kill or be killed. And Nathan wasn't ready. Not yet. Not with Sarah's evidence about to bring Wilson down legally. Not with Elena waiting at the house, trusting him to come back safe. Not with his father's voice in his head. Violence is the tool of last resort. A man who reaches for it first has already lost. Nathan lowered his rifle. You've made your point, Brennan. We're leaving. Cole's grin widened. Triumphant. Smart choice, Blackwood. Real smart. Nathan mounted his horse, gestured for his men to do the same, but before they turned away, he met Cole's eyes. This isn't over. No, sir. It surely ain't. Cole tipped his hat. Mock courtesy. See you at the council meeting Tuesday. Should be interesting. They rode back toward the ranch in silence. Nathan's humiliation burned hotter than the rage. He'd backed down, let Wilson's man chase him off his own property. Retreated like a whipped dog. Behind them, Cole Brennan's laughter echoed across the valley, mocking. Victorious, and Nathan Blackwood, who'd spent 15 years building an empire on the principle that a man protects what's his, had just proven he couldn't protect his own water. The ride home was the longest of his life. Nathan reached the ranch house near midnight. Elena and Sarah were waiting on the porch, Sarah with a rifle across her lap, Elena with a lantern held high. They stood as Nathan dismounted. What happened? Sarah demanded. Nathan told them. Short sentences. Clipped words: the dam, the diverted water, Cole Brennan's protection of Wilson's interests, the armed men against 4, his retreat. When he finished, silence, then Elena spoke. You did the right thing. Nathan looked at her sharply. I ran. Let Wilson's man chase me off. You chose the battle that matters. Elena's voice was steady. Certain. Sarah has evidence that could destroy Wilson. Fighting Cole Brennan tonight would have given Wilson exactly what he wants. Proof that you're violent and unstable. Justification to accelerate his legal claims before the marshal arrives. She's right, Sarah added. Wilson's trying to provoke you. Make you do something stupid before Monday when the charges come down. And in the meantime, my herd dies of thirst, Nathan said bitterly. We moved them, Jacob said. He'd followed Nathan to the house, his exhaustion evident. South pasture. Spring there will hold 800 head for a few days. It's a 12-hour drive. Then we start now. Jacob's voice was firm, loyal. 10 years of friendship and work making the decision simple. I'll get the hands organized. We can have the herd moving by 1 o'clock. Nathan wanted to argue, but Jacob was right. Action. Movement. Something besides standing here feeling helpless and humiliated. Do it, Nathan said. Jacob nodded and headed back toward the bunkhouse to wake Emmett and Tom. Sarah stood. Stretched. I'm going to bed. Tomorrow I ride to town. Meet with Judge Parker. Make sure he knows everything that's happening. She paused at the door. Don't do anything stupid tonight, Nathan. We're too close to winning to throw it away on pride. She disappeared inside. Leaving Nathan and Elena alone on the porch, the silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken things. You think I'm a coward, Nathan said finally. For backing down, I think you're smart. Elena moved closer. Close enough he could smell lavender soap and flour from the bread she'd baked that morning. And I think Matthew Wilson is desperate. Men do their worst damage when they're cornered. He damned my creek. He's killing my herd. He's trying to make you react. To prove you're the violent, unstable man he's been telling everyone you are. Elena's voice was gentle but firm, unwavering. Don't give him what he wants. Nathan's hands gripped the porch railing. My father built this ranch on a code. You protect what's yours. You don't back down. You don't let men steal from you. Your father also taught you to think before you act, to choose your battles. Elena touched his arm lightly, briefly. This battle, the one Sarah's fighting with evidence and law, that's the one that ends Wilson for good. Not a fistfight at a creek in the dark. Nathan turned to face her. You've been here 4 days, Elena. 4 days. And you're already counseling me like you've known me for years. Maybe that's because in 4 days I've seen more of your character than some people reveal in a lifetime. She held his gaze, unflinching. You're not a coward, Nathan Blackwood. You're a man fighting a war on multiple fronts. And you're smart enough to know that winning matters more than pride. Something in Nathan's chest loosened, the tight knot of shame and rage that had been choking him since the creek. She was right. He hated it. Hated backing down. Hated letting Cole Brennan laugh at him. But she was right. Sarah had built a legal case that would destroy Wilson permanently. 2 more days. Just 2 more days until the marshal arrived and Wilson was arrested. 2 days of swallowing pride and restraint. Nathan could manage 2 days for justice, for his ranch. For the woman standing in front of him with lamplight catching gold in her brown hair and certainty in her eyes. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? For seeing me clearly. Not the man Wilson's trying to paint. Not the man I'm afraid I'm becoming. Just me, Elena smiled, sad and warm at once. That's easy. You're a good man, Nathan, even when you doubt it. Especially when you doubt it. The moment stretched between them. Nathan became acutely aware of how close she stood, how the lamplight softened her features, how her eyes, tired but determined, reflected the same stubborn courage that had made her walk 4 miles in a storm rather than accept Matthew Wilson's cruelty. He could kiss her, should kiss her, maybe, seal this moment into something more than words and worry. But his father's voice, always his father's voice, reminded him, a man doesn't take advantage, doesn't press his claim when a woman's dependent on his charity. Elena wasn't his to kiss. Not yet. Maybe not ever. She was his employee. Temporary at that. 3 more days and she'd be gone to Helena. Starting fresh. Without him, you should get some sleep, Nathan said, stepping back. Creating distance. Tomorrow will be long. Disappointment flickered in Elena's eyes. Or maybe he imagined it. What about you? I'm riding out with Jacob. Need to help move the herd. He managed a tired smile. Cattle don't move themselves, Nathan. I'll be fine. Sarah's here. You won't be alone, Elena wanted to argue. He could see it in every line of her body, but she just nodded. Be safe, always am. She turned toward the door, paused. Looked back. 4 days, she said softly. What? You said I've been here 4 days. Like it's not enough time to matter. Her eyes met his, direct. Honest. But sometimes 4 days is all it takes to know something's worth fighting for. Then she was inside. Leaving Nathan alone on the porch with the night and his thoughts and the terrible, wonderful possibility that maybe, just maybe, he wasn't the only one feeling this thing growing between them. Jacob's voice carried from the bunkhouse. Herd's ready. Boss. Nathan pushed off the railing. Work, movement, cattle to drive through the night. He could think about Elena Barnes and her words and what they might mean later. Right now, he had a ranch to save. But as he swung into his saddle and rode toward the waiting herd, Nathan couldn't shake the memory of her voice. Sometimes 4 days is all it takes to know something's worth fighting for. Worth fighting for. Was that what this was? A fight worth having? Nathan didn't know. But as he pushed 800 head of cattle through the darkness toward water that would keep them alive, as he fought to protect what was his with strategy instead of violence, he thought maybe it was. Maybe Elena Barnes was worth fighting for, worth waiting for, worth building a future with, if she'd have him. 3 more days, then her week would be up. and Nathan Blackwood would have to find the courage to ask her to stay. Not as his employee, but as something more. Something permanent. If he could just survive the next 2 days without Wilson destroying everything first. The town council meeting started at 7 o'clock Tuesday evening. Nathan arrived early. Alone, Sarah had wanted to come. Elena too. But Nathan had been firm. This was his fight, his land. His words that needed saying. Let them see you standing on your own, he'd told them that morning. Let the council know I'm not hiding behind women or lawyers. Just a rancher defending what's rightfully his. Now, standing outside the general store where the council met, Nathan questioned that decision. Maybe backup would have been smart. But pride, stubborn, foolish pride, had won out. He pushed through the door. The council met in the back room. 6 men seated around a rough-hewn table. Matthew Wilson at the head, naturally. Mayor Preston to his right. 4 other council members Nathan knew by sight if not by friendship. Wilson looked up as Nathan entered. Smiled that politician's smile. Smooth as oil. Cold as January. Blackwood. Good of you to join us. Wouldn't miss it. Nathan took the empty chair at the far end of the table. Directly across from Wilson. I hear you've got opinions about my water usage. Not opinions. Concerns. Wilson shuffled papers with practiced efficiency. Every movement calculated. The territorial surveyor has raised questions about Logan Creek's legal status. Whether it's truly part of the Logan property, or if it's communal access that's been improperly claimed. The deed's clear, Nathan said. His voice was steady, controlled. Judge Parker witnessed James Logan's will. Creek's mine. Judge Parker is retiring this week. Wilson countered smoothly. And his successor, Judge Harrison, has different interpretations of property law. More modern. More focused on efficient land use and resource distribution. Translation. More willing to rule in Wilson's favor. Nathan's hands clenched under the table. What are you proposing? A temporary reallocation. Wilson gestured to a map spread on the table. Boundary lines marked in careful ink. Until the will dispute is settled in court, Logan Creek's flow should be divided equally between your property and mine. Fair and equitable distribution, except it's not equal, Nathan said. His jaw was tight. You've got 3 other water sources on your land. Spring Creek, Miller's Run. The reservoir you built 2 years ago. I've got 1 source, Logan Creek. You're proposing to cut my herd's water by half while leaving yours untouched. Mayor Preston shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Mr. Blackwood raises a valid point, Matthew. Does he? Wilson's voice hardened. No more smooth politician. Now the edge showed. Or is he simply unwilling to share resources during a legal dispute? The kind of selfishness that makes one question his fitness as a land steward. There it was. The real attack. Not about water. About Nathan's character. His worthiness to hold the Logan property. My fitness? Nathan's voice was dangerously quiet. I've worked this land for 15 years. Built it from a 160-acre homestead to 3,000 acres of productive ranch. My cattle are healthy, my accounts are clean. My word is good, and your personal life? Wilson leaned forward, eyes gleaming with malice barely concealed. You've been harboring a woman of questionable background. A failed mail-order bride with no means, no references, no family. Living under your roof without chaperone or propriety for, what is it now? 5 days? Gasped from the council members. Nathan stood slowly. Chair scraping against floorboards. Elena Barnes is my employee. She works for wages, keeps my house and accounts. There's nothing improper about our arrangement, so you say. Wilson's smile was cold, victorious. But appearances matter, Blackwood. And the appearance of a single man living with a desperate woman. Well, it raises questions about judgment, stability, the kinds of qualities we want in men who control significant land and water resources. The trap was perfect. Defend Elena's honor. Look defensive and guilty. Ignore the insinuation, appear complicit. Either way, Wilson won. Nathan opened his mouth to respond. The door burst open. Sarah strode in. Behind her, Judge Parker and a tall man Nathan didn't recognize, gray-haired, stern-faced, wearing a territorial marshal's badge that gleamed in the lamplight. Wilson went pale, actually pale. Nathan had never seen Matthew Wilson lose composure before. It was beautiful. What is the meaning of this? Wilson demanded. But his voice shook, just slightly. Just enough to reveal the fear beneath the bluster. Matthew Wilson. The marshal's voice was granite, pure authority. I'm Marshal Frank Hendricks. I have a warrant for your arrest on charges of fraud, bribery, and conspiracy to defraud the territorial government. Absolute silence. The kind of silence that comes when the entire world shifts on its axis. Wilson recovered quickly. Stood, smoothed his vest with trembling hands. This is absurd. On what evidence? On evidence compiled by Judge Franklin of Denver, submitted to the territorial prosecutor 1 week ago. Reviewed and found sufficient for arrest, Hendricks pulled handcuffs from his belt. Heavy iron, they clinked together with finality. You want to come quietly, or do we do this the hard way? Wilson looked around the room desperately. At the council members, most avoiding his eyes. At Nathan, who sat very still, watching. At Sarah, who stood with her arms crossed, satisfaction carved into every line of her face. This is a mistake, Wilson said, but his voice cracked. I'll have lawyers, the best lawyers money can buy. I'll fight this, you're welcome to try. Hendricks moved forward, inexorable as time. But I've seen the evidence personally, Mr. Wilson. Forged signatures on land deeds, falsified cattle bloodline papers, bribes to territorial officials documented with your own signed receipts. You're going to prison. Only question is for how long, as Hendricks cuffed Wilson's wrists. The metal clicking shut with terrible finality. Wilson stopped struggling, stood very still. Then he looked at Nathan, really looked at him. And in Wilson's eyes, Nathan saw something he'd never seen before. Fear, real, genuine fear. The fear of a man who'd spent his entire life winning through money and manipulation, now facing consequences he couldn't buy his way out of. This isn't over, Blackwood, Wilson said. But there was no heat in it. Just desperation, yeah, Nathan said quietly. It is? Hendricks led Wilson toward the door. The council members sat frozen, watching their most powerful member, the man who'd controlled Clearwater for a decade, being led away in chains. At the door, Wilson stopped, looked back one more time. Tell Cole. He started. Cole Brennan fled to Wyoming yesterday, Sarah interrupted. Her voice was sharp, triumphant. Heard the marshal was coming. Ran like the coward he is. You're alone, Wilson. Completely alone. Wilson's face crumpled. Then Hendricks pulled him through the door and out into the night. The council members sat in stunned silence. Finally, Mayor Preston cleared his throat. I believe we should table the water allocation discussion until the legal situation is clarified. Good idea, Nathan said. His voice was steady despite the adrenaline singing through his veins. He stood, walked to where Sarah stood with Judge Parker. Thank you, he said to his sister. I told you I'd handle it. Sarah's smile was fierce, predatory. Wilson's done. The evidence is ironclad. He'll be convicted. Judge Parker nodded. His weathered face showed approval. The territorial prosecutor is very interested in this case. Wilson's been operating unchecked for too long. This will send a message to every would-be tyrant in the territory. The law applies to everyone. Even the rich. Nathan shook the old judge's hand. I appreciate everything you've done, Judge. Just upholding the law, son. As I've always tried to do. Parker glanced at the council members still sitting in shocked silence. I suspect your water rights won't be questioned much longer. Not once. Harrison sees the kind of man Wilson really was. The bribes he paid, the officials he corrupted. No judge wants to be associated with that kind of criminality. They walked out into the cool evening air. Nathan stood on the boardwalk, watching the marshal's wagon disappear toward the jail. Wilson's shape visible through the bars. 2 years of warfare ended in minutes. How do you feel? Sarah asked quietly. Nathan considered. Examined the emotions churning in his chest. Empty, he admitted finally. I thought I'd feel triumphant, vindicated, but mostly I just feel tired. That's because the fight took more than it should have. Sarah touched his arm. Gentle, sisterly, but it's over now. You can rebuild, move forward. Focus on the ranch instead of Wilson's attacks, can I? Nathan looked at his sister. Wilson's in jail. But the damage he did, to you, to this town, to my reputation, that doesn't disappear with handcuffs. No, but it fades. With time and work and proof that you're exactly who you've always been. Sarah smiled. Sad but hopeful. And you've got help now. Elena's been good for you, I can see it. Nathan thought about Elena, waiting at the ranch, probably pacing the porch, worrying. She's only here for 3 more days, he said quietly. Weeks almost up. Then she moves on to Helena. Does she have to? That was our agreement. Agreements can be renegotiated. Sarah's voice was knowing. Too knowing. If both parties want them to be. Nathan was quiet. Did he want Elena to stay? God, yes, every fiber of his being wanted her to stay. But wanting and having, those were different countries. And he'd built his life on honor, on keeping his word, on not taking advantage of people in vulnerable positions. Elena had come to Montana seeking a husband, a partnership, security, not to be a housekeeper for a rancher fighting legal battles. She deserved better than what he could offer, didn't she? Come on, Sarah said. Let's go home. Tell Elena that the dragon's been slain. They mounted their horses and rode toward the ranch. Behind them, clear water buzzed with the news. Matthew Wilson, arrested. The Blackwood name, vindicated. And the war everyone had been watching for a year. Over. But as Nathan rode through the darkness, he couldn't shake the feeling that something else was just beginning. Something more personal, more dangerous. The question he'd been avoiding for 5 days. What came next? Elena was waiting on the porch when they rode in. She stood as Nathan and Sarah dismounted, searching their faces in the lamplight for answers. Well, she asked. Her voice was tight with tension. Nathan's exhausted smile told her everything. Wilson's in custody, arrested on fraud and bribery charges. Marshall took him to the territorial jail in Helena. He'll stand trial next month. Elena's knees went weak with relief. She gripped the porch railing. It's over? The legal part, yes? Nathan climbed the steps, stopped close enough that she could see the weariness in his eyes. The weight finally lifting. Marshall Hendricks has all of Sarah's evidence. The prosecutor says it's the strongest case they've seen in years. Wilson's going to prison for a long time. And the water rights? Counsel tabled the discussion. Judge Parker says once Harrison sees the evidence against Wilson, the bribes, the fraud, the corruption, he won't touch the Logan property dispute. Nathan managed a real smile. Small, but genuine. We won, Elena. Sarah's evidence did exactly what she promised. Sarah joined them on the porch. I'm going inside to write Judge Franklin. Let him know the arrest went smoothly and thank him for his help. She paused, glancing between Nathan and Elena. Something unspoken passing across her face. Take your time out here. You two have things to discuss. She disappeared into the house, leaving Nathan and Elena alone in the quiet darkness. Things to discuss? Elena repeated softly. Nathan leaned against the porch railing, suddenly looked older than his 36 years, worn down by 2 years of fighting. You've been here 6 days. I have. Our agreement was 1 week. It was. Tomorrow's your last day. Elena's chest tightened. She'd been so focused on Wilson's threat, on the immediate crisis, that she'd pushed away thoughts about what came after. About leaving, I suppose it is, she managed. Nathan was quiet for a long moment, just stood there in the lamplight, shadows playing across his face. Finally he spoke. I want to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Not polite, not what you think I want to hear. Honest, all right. Do you want to go to Helena? The question hung between them, heavy with possibility. Elena thought about the plan she'd made 6 days ago. Helena, fresh start. Use the wages Nathan had paid her to secure a room, find work as a seamstress, build a life far from Matthew Wilson and his cruelty. It had seemed simple then, necessary, the only path forward. But now, standing on this porch with this man who'd shown her more respect in 6 days than Wilson had in 4 months of letters, now the plan felt hollow, like ashes in her mouth. No, she said quietly. I don't want to go to Helena. Nathan's breath caught, audible in the silence. Then stay. As what, your housekeeper? As whatever you want to be. He turned to face her fully. Elena, I know this is fast. I know we've only known each other 6 days. But in those 6 days, you've become… He stopped, started again. Voice rough with emotion. This place feels different with you in it. Better. Like it's finally a home instead of just a headquarters. And I'm not ready for that to end. Elena's heart hammered. Nathan, let me finish. He held up a hand. I'm not good at this, never have been. Sarah says I think too much and feel too little. But with you I feel, he exhaled, everything. And it scares me. Why does it scare you? Because I'm offering you nothing you came west to find. I'm not wealthy like Wilson. Can't promise you comfort or luxury or an easy life. What I've got is this land, this house, and a future that's going to be hard more often than it's easy. He met her eyes, direct, honest, vulnerable in a way she'd never seen him. But if you stay, if you choose to stay, I swear to you, Elena Barnes, I will build something worth having. A partnership, a home, a future where you're not my employee or my charity case or some woman I hired out of pity. Where you're your wife? The word fell between them like a stone into still water, creating ripples, changing everything. Nathan went very still. Is that what you want? Elena's mind raced. Marriage. To Nathan Blackwood. A man she'd known 6 days, it should seem insane. Reckless, exactly the kind of foolish decision that had brought her to Montana in the first place. But somehow it didn't feel foolish. It felt right. Like every choice she'd made since stepping off that stagecoach had been leading her here. To this porch. This man. This moment. Matthew Wilson had wanted a wife who elevated his standing. A business investment. Nathan Blackwood was offering partnership, respect. A future built on shared work and mutual regard. The difference was everything. Yes, she said. Her voice was steady despite her racing heart. That's what I want. Nathan crossed the distance between them in 2 strides, cupped her face in his work-roughened hands. You're sure? This isn't gratitude or fear of being alone, or this is me choosing you. Elena's voice was firm. Not because you rescued me, not because I have nowhere else to go, but because in 6 days you've shown me what a real partnership looks like, what respect looks like. What, her voice caught, what love could look like. If we let it, Nathan's thumb traced her cheekbone. Gentle, reverent. I can't promise it'll be easy. I don't need easy. I need real. Then marry me, Elena Barnes. Be my partner, my wife. The woman who helps me build this ranch into something worth leaving behind. Yes, he kissed her then, soft at first, tentative. Like he was still afraid she might disappear. But Elena leaned into it, wrapped her arms around his neck, kissed him back with 6 days of restrained wanting. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Nathan rested his forehead against hers. Sarah's going to say I told you so. Elena laughed, the sound bubbling up from pure joy. Let her. She earned it. Behind them, the front door cracked open. Are you two finished being ridiculous? Sarah called. Because I've got champagne in here that Judge Franklin sent with me from Denver. And I'd like to toast my brother's engagement before the bottle gets warm. Nathan and Elena looked at each other, grinned. How did she? Elena started. Sarah knows everything. Nathan took her hand, laced their fingers together. Come on, let's make it official. They went inside, where Sarah waited with 3 glasses and a smile that said she'd known exactly how this would end from the moment she'd seen them together. To new beginnings, Sarah said, raising her glass. To family, Nathan added. Elena lifted her glass. To fighting for what matters. They drank. And for the first time since arriving in Montana territory, Elena Barnes felt like she'd finally found what she'd been searching for. Not security, not rescue, but home. They were still celebrating. Small sips of champagne, laughter, Sarah telling embarrassing stories about Nathan's childhood. When the sound of breaking glass shattered the moment, Nathan was moving before the second crash, rifle in hand. Stay inside. But even as he said it, smoke began seeping under the door. The barn was on fire. Nathan burst through the door into chaos. The barn, his barn, where he'd found Elena 6 days ago, where his horses and equipment and winter feed were stored, was engulfed in flames. Orange and red against the night sky, heat rolling across the yard in waves. Jacob and the hands were already there, buckets forming a line from the pump. Water splashing uselessly against the inferno. How bad? Nathan shouted over the roar. Total loss. Jacob's face was black with soot. Went up too fast. Someone used accelerant. Kerosene, maybe. Coal oil? Nathan's blood went cold. Not an accident. Arson, the horses? Got them out. They're in the corrals. But the tack, the winter hay, the equipment. Jacob didn't finish. Didn't need to. Nathan understood. Winter feed for his herd. Gone saddles and tack worth hundreds of dollars. Gone tools accumulated over 15 years. Gone. Everything he needed to run this ranch efficiently. Destroyed. Sarah appeared at his side. Elena behind her. Both women's faces reflecting the flames. This was Wilson, Sarah said. Her voice was flat. Certain. One last strike before he goes to prison. Wilson's locked up, Nathan replied. But even as he said it, doubt crept in. Cole Brennan, Elena said quietly. He didn't go to Wyoming. He's still here. And he's finishing what Wilson started. Nathan's hands clenched on his rifle. She was right. This had Cole's signature all over it. The professional application of accelerant. The timing, right after Wilson's arrest. Calculated to cause maximum damage with minimum risk. Cole had probably been gone for an hour already, riding hard for the territorial border. By the time anyone could pursue, he'd be in Wyoming. Untouchable. Let it burn, Nathan said finally. Nothing we can do now. Just keep the sparks from spreading to the house. They worked through the night. Bucket brigade keeping the house and corrals wet, watching the barn collapse in on itself. Timbers crashing, sparks spiraling into the darkness like dying stars. By dawn, only smoldering rubble remained. Nathan stood in the yard. covered in soot and ash. Staring at the destruction, 15 years of work, gone in a single night, Elena came to stand beside him. She didn't touch him, didn't offer empty comfort, just stood there. "Present, we'll rebuild," she said finally. "With what money?" Nathan's voice was hollow. "The winter feed alone. I'll have to buy hay at premium prices. The equipment, the tack. It'll cost thousands to replace, then we'll find a way." Elena's voice was firm. "You rebuilt once before, after your father died and the creditors circled. You can do it again. That was different. I was younger. Stronger. You're 36, not 60. And you're not alone this time." Elena finally touched his arm. "You have me. You have Sarah. You have Jacob and the hands. We'll figure it out together." Nathan looked at her. This woman who'd arrived with nothing 6 days ago. Who'd worked herself raw fixing his garden and organizing his accounts. Who'd stood firm when Wilson threatened her. Who'd just agreed to marry him despite knowing his future was now more uncertain than ever. "Why?" he asked. "Why stay when everything just got harder?" Elena smiled, sad but certain. "Because hard doesn't scare me. Never has. What scares me is running from something real just because it's difficult." She turned to face the ruins fully. "Matthew Wilson wanted to break you, make you give up. Prove you don't deserve what you've built." Her voice hardened. "Don't let him win. Don't let Cole Brennan's cowardice destroy what 15 years of honest work created." Nathan stared at the smoking rubble, then at his hands, scarred, calloused. Still strong despite everything, his father's voice whispered, "A man who quits isn't a man. He's just someone who gave up on himself." Nathan Blackwood had never quit. Not when his mother died, not when his father followed, not when Wilson attacked him legally, financially, personally. He sure as hell wasn't quitting now. "All right," he said, voice rough but determined. "We rebuild. Starting today." The next 3 days passed in a blur of activity. Nathan rode to Clearwater, met with the bank, secured a loan against his land to buy winter feed and replace essential equipment. The banker, nervous about lending to someone who'd just lost a barn, changed his tune when Judge Parker appeared, vouching for Nathan's character, explaining Wilson's arrest and the evidence of fraud. Suddenly, the Blackwood name meant something again. The loan was approved. Nathan bought hay from a supplier in Helena, ordered new tack from the saddle maker, hired 2 carpenters to start work on a new barn, smaller than the old one, but functional. Elena managed the household with ruthless efficiency, stretching every penny, making meals from the garden and preserved foods, mending clothes instead of buying new. Sarah handled the legal aftermath of Wilson's arrest, met with the prosecutor, provided additional documentation, ensured the case against Wilson was airtight. And in the evenings, after the work was done and the sun had set, Nathan and Elena would sit on the porch, planning, not just the barn rebuild, but their future. The wedding. Judge Parker's agreed to perform the ceremony, Nathan said on the 3rd evening, Saturday morning, his office. "Before he leaves for retirement." "That's 4 days from now," Elena replied. "Too fast." Elena considered, then shook her head. "No, not too fast. Just practical. I'm a practical man, I've noticed." She smiled. "What about witnesses?" "We'll need them for the marriage certificate, Sarah, obviously." "Jacob, Emmett and Tom from the ranch." Nathan paused. "And Mabel Fletcher, if she'll come, the washerwoman who warned me about you. She's known me since I was a boy, and she's got the biggest mouth in Clearwater." Nathan's voice was dry. "If Mabel's at the wedding, the whole town will know it's legitimate by sunset. Cuts off any lingering gossip about impropriety." Elena nodded slowly. "Smart. What about my dress?" Nathan thought about Sarah's trunk. The Sunday dress wrapped in tissue paper. Blue silk that had never been worn. "Sarah might have something you could." "No." Elena's voice was firm. "I won't wear Sarah's dress. This marriage, our marriage, it should start with something that's mine. Something I made." "You're going to sew a wedding dress in 4 days?" "I'm going to try." She met his eyes, pride and determination clear in her face. "I was a seamstress, Nathan. A good one. Let me do this. Please." He saw the need in her face, the desire to contribute something tangible, something that proved her worth beyond housekeeping and accounts. "All right," he agreed. "You make your dress. I'll handle everything else." "What's everything else?" Nathan stood, stretched muscles sore from 3 days of hard labor. "Making sure this ranch is ready for a wife." Over the next 4 days, Nathan threw himself into preparations with the same intensity he'd once used to build the ranch from nothing. He cleaned the house until it gleamed, repaired the porch railing that had been loose for months, fixed the squeaky hinge on the bedroom door, their bedroom door. Soon, small things. Things a man did when he wanted his home to be worthy of the woman about to share it. Jacob found him hammering fence posts at sunset 3 days before the wedding. Boss, those posts don't need replacing. They're crooked. They've been crooked for 5 years. Never bothered you before. Nathan drove another nail. Well, they bother me now. Jacob leaned against the fence. Quiet for a moment. You're nervous. I'm not nervous. You're fixing things that ain't broke. That's the definition of nervous. Jacob's voice was gentle, knowing. She said, yes, Nathan. She's not going anywhere. I know. So why are you out here breaking your back instead of inside with her? Nathan set down the hammer, stared at the horizon where the sun was bleeding orange and gold across the mountains. Because I keep waiting for something to go wrong, he admitted. The words pulled from somewhere deep. Wilson's in jail. The water rights are secure. Elena said yes. The barn's being rebuilt. It all feels too easy. After fighting so hard for so long, maybe it's supposed to be easy sometimes. Jacob's voice was quiet, wise. Maybe you earned this, boss. The hard part's over. Now you get to enjoy what you built. Nathan wanted to believe that, but years of struggle had taught him. Nothing stayed easy for long. Still, he nodded. Yeah, maybe you're right. I'm always right. Ask anyone, Nathan snorted. Get out of here, old man. Go check on the new barn construction. Already did. Carpenters say they'll have the frame up by Friday. Roof by next week. Jacob clapped Nathan's shoulder. Everything's fine, Nathan. Let yourself believe it. He walked away, leaving Nathan alone with the sunset and his thoughts. Everything was fine. The legal battle, won the water, secured the barn, rebuilding. The woman waiting inside sewing her wedding dress by lamplight. Nathan took a deep breath, let it out slowly, allowed himself to believe, just for a moment, that maybe Jacob was right. Maybe the hard part really was over. Maybe he could finally stop fighting and start living. Saturday morning dawned clear and bright. Nathan woke in the barn. He'd been sleeping there since Sarah arrived, maintaining propriety. Old habits. His father's voice about doing things right. Today was the last day he'd wake up alone. After today, Elena would be his wife. The thought made his heart race. He dressed in his Sunday clothes. Black suit his father had worn to marry Nathan's mother 37 years ago. Brushed clean. Pressed by Elena's careful hands, the suit still fit. Barely. Nathan had filled out since his father's time. Shoulders broader from ranch work. But it would do. He walked to the house as the sun cleared the eastern ridge. Found Sarah already up, making coffee. She looked him over. Nodded approval. You clean up nice, brother. Don't get used to it. Nathan poured himself a cup. Where's Elena? Upstairs. Finishing her dress. Sarah smiled, knowing she's been up since 4. Wouldn't let me help. Said this was something she needed to do herself. Stubborn woman. You're marrying stubborn. Better get used to it. Sarah's voice turned serious. Are you ready for this? Been ready since the moment she said yes. Good answer. Sarah touched his arm. I'm happy for you, Nathan. Truly, you deserve this. Deserve her, do I? Yes, firm, no doubt. You're a good man, even when you doubt it, especially when you doubt it. And Elena sees that. She chose you knowing exactly who you are. Not some fantasy, not some ideal. Just you. That's rare. Nathan's throat tightened. Thank you, Sarah. Don't thank me. Just be happy. That's all I want, she smiled. Now finish your coffee. We leave for town in an hour. The ride to Clearwater took 90 minutes. Nathan drove the wagon. Sarah beside him. Elena in the back, hidden under a blanket per Sarah's insistence. Bad luck for the groom to see the bride before the ceremony. Sarah had declared. Nathan hadn't argued. Some traditions were worth keeping. They arrived at Judge Parker's office at precisely 10 o'clock. The room was small. Barely fit everyone Nathan had invited. Jacob stood as best man, gruff and uncomfortable in his Sunday coat. Emmett and Tom from the ranch, both scrubbed clean. Mabel Fletcher, who'd shown up without invitation, but with a wedding cake she'd baked at midnight. And Sarah, glowing with satisfaction at the match she'd helped engineer. Judge Parker waited at the front, Bible in hand. Weathered face showing approval. Ready, son? More than ready. Good. Let's get your bride. Sarah disappeared through the side door, returned moments later, with Elena Nathan's breath caught. The dress was simple. Blue cotton. The same fabric as one of Sarah's old work dresses, but transformed completely. Fitted at the waist. Modest neckline. Lace at the cuffs she'd tatted herself by lamplight over 4 nights. Nothing fancy. Nothing expensive, but beautiful because she'd made it with her own hands. Proof that she could create something from nothing, just like Nathan had created this ranch from wilderness. They were matched, he realized with sudden clarity. Both builders, both fighters, both too stubborn to accept defeat, both willing to take raw materials, whether land or fabric, and shape them into something meaningful through sheer force of will and skill. Elena walked toward him. Her eyes met his, and Nathan Blackwood, who'd spent 15 years building an empire with bleeding hands and unbroken resolve, felt his heart finally come home. Judge Parker opened his Bible. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to witness the union of Nathan Blackwood and Elena Barnes in holy matrimony. Marriage is not to be entered into lightly, but reverently, deliberately, and in accordance with the purposes for which it was instituted by God. Nathan barely heard the words. He was too focused on Elena, on the way her hand trembled slightly as she took his, on the certainty in her eyes despite that tremor, on the small smile playing at her lips. Do you, Nathan Blackwood, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, till death do you part? I do. No hesitation, no doubt, just certainty. Do you, Elena Barnes, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, till death do you part? I do. Her voice was clear. Strong, the voice of a woman who'd made her choice and wouldn't be moved. Then by the power vested in me by the Montana Territory, I pronounce you husband and wife. Parker smiled, warm and genuine. You may kiss your bride. Nathan didn't need to be told twice. He pulled Elena close and kissed her, like they were the only two people in the room, like they had all the time in the world, like he'd found something worth more than land or water or legacy. He'd found home. When they broke apart, the small gathering erupted in applause. Mabel was crying. Jacob looked suspiciously misty-eyed. Even Sarah wiped at her eyes. Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Blackwood, Parker said warmly. May you build a life worthy of the struggle it took to get here. Nathan signed the marriage certificate with steady hands. Elena added her name. Now, Elena Blackwood, in careful script, official, legal, permanent. They walked out of Parker's office into bright morning sunlight. Clearwater's main street bustled with Saturday activity. People stopped to stare. Whispers followed the wedding party. That's Blackwood. Married Wilson's rejected bride after all. Heard Wilson's going to prison. Fraud and bribery. Maybe Blackwood was right all along. Maybe the Barnes woman was the smart choice. Nathan ignored them all, helped Elena into the wagon, climbed up beside her. Sarah, Jacob, and the others followed on horseback. They made quite a procession riding back to the ranch, and if some townspeople whispered, well, let them. Matthew Wilson was in jail awaiting trial. The land was secure, and Nathan Blackwood had just married the most remarkable woman he'd ever met. Everything else was just noise. The celebration lasted into the evening. Mabel's cake. Whiskey from Jacob's private stock, saved for special occasions. Music from Emmett's fiddle, played with more enthusiasm than skill, but heartfelt nonetheless. Dancing in the yard as the sun set over the mountains, Nathan held Elena close. Swayed to music that was more enthusiasm than melody. Happy? He asked quietly. Terrified, she admitted with brutal honesty. But yes, happy. Why terrified? Because this is real now. We're married. And I'm responsible for helping build something that matters. Something that will outlast us. You've been building it all week, Nathan pointed out. This just makes it official. Elena smiled, rested her head on his shoulder. I came to Montana expecting security. A husband who'd take care of me, make decisions for me, tell me what to do and how to live, and instead you got me. Instead I got a partner. She looked up at him, eyes bright with unshed tears. Happy tears. Someone who asks my opinion, values my work, treats me like an equal, respects me. You are an equal. Most men don't think that way. I'm not most men. Nathan kissed her forehead, gentle, reverent. You proved your worth 100 times this week, Elena. The garden, the accounts. Standing firm when Wilson came calling. Staying when the barn burned and everything got harder. You earned your place here. I'll keep earning it, she promised fiercely, every day. For the rest of our lives, they danced until the stars came out, until the guests departed. Jacob and the hands back to the bunkhouse, Mabel to town with promises to visit soon. Sarah to her room with a knowing smile and whispered congratulations, leaving Nathan and Elena alone, husband and wife. For the first time, Nathan took her hand, led her inside, up the stairs to his room. Their room now, the space had been transformed. Fresh linens, wildflowers, candles burning soft and low, Sarah's work probably. One final gift to her brother on his wedding night. Nervous? Nathan asked. A little. Me too, Elena laughed, the sound bubbling up from pure joy. The fearless rancher who faced down Matthew Wilson is nervous. Wilson was easy. This, Nathan gestured between them. This matters more. Elena reached up, touched his face with gentle fingers. Then we'll figure it out together. Like everything else. Together, Nathan agreed. He kissed her, and for the first time in years, maybe ever, Nathan Blackwood felt complete, not because of the land he'd claimed or the battles he'd won, but because of the woman in his arms, the one who'd arrived with nothing and given him everything. Elena Barnes Blackwood, his wife, his partner, his home. Outside, the Montana night settled over the valley in peaceful darkness. Inside, two people who'd found each other against all odds began building their future. One kiss at a time, one promise at a time, one shared breath at a time, together. Snow blanketed the valley in white silence. Elena stood at the kitchen window, one hand on her swelling belly, watching Nathan and Jacob work the winter, feeding in the distance. The new barn stood strong against the December cold, larger than the old one, better built, with a hayloft that held enough feed to last through the harshest winter, proof that destruction could be survived, that rebuilding was possible, that what didn't kill you really did make you stronger. The land was theirs now, uncontested. Judge Harrison had ruled in their favor 3 months ago, once Wilson's fraud conviction became public. The Logan property was legally, permanently part of the Blackwood Ranch. Matthew Wilson was serving 12 years in the territorial prison. His appeals had been denied. His lawyers had abandoned him. His empire, built on lies and bribery, had crumbled to dust. Cole Brennan had never been found. Rumor said he'd died in a bar fight in Cheyenne. Nathan didn't care. As long as Brennan stayed away from Montana, he could rot anywhere he pleased. The ranch thrived. New cattle purchased with careful loans. Expanded grazing rotations. The Logan Creek water flowing freely, feeding the herd that would be Nathan's legacy. And come spring, there'd be a new addition, a baby. Nathan's child, the future they were building made flesh. Elena heard footsteps behind her. Sarah's voice, "You're supposed to be resting. I'm watching my husband work." "That's restful." Sarah joined her at the window, smiled at the sight of Nathan. Strong, capable, his breath frosting in the cold air as he hauled hay to the waiting cattle. "He's happy," Sarah observed. "Happier than I've seen him in years. Maybe ever. So am I." "Good." Sarah touched Elena's shoulder. Sisterly affection they'd built over 6 months of living together. "You're good for him, for this place, for all of us. I'm glad you stayed. I'm glad you came back. We couldn't have done this without your evidence against Wilson. Justice needed serving." Sarah's voice was satisfied. Final. And Wilson needed stopping. "I'm just grateful it worked." They stood together in comfortable silence. Two women who'd survived Matthew Wilson's cruelty in different ways. Who'd fought back. Who'd won. Outside, Nathan finished his work, looked up at the house, saw Elena in the window, waved. She waved back, and Nathan Blackwood, rancher, husband, soon-to-be father, smiled. The kind of smile that came from deep contentment, from knowing he'd fought the right battles, made the right choices, built something worth having, something worth defending, something worth passing on. He walked back to the house through the snow, to his wife, to the life they'd carved from Montana wilderness, with bleeding hands and stubborn determination, and a love that had grown from nothing into everything. As he crossed the threshold, Elena met him at the door. "Welcome home," she said. Nathan pulled her close, kissed her thoroughly despite the cold still clinging to his coat. "I am home," he replied, voice rough with emotion. "Have been since the day I found you walking away from Wilson's cruelty with your head still high." Elena smiled. "Liar. You didn't even know me then. Didn't have to know you. Just had to recognize you." "As what?" Nathan's hand rested on her belly, on the child growing there. The next generation of Blackwoods could work this land, build on what he and Elena had started. "As mine," he said simply. "As home. As the woman who'd helped me build something that matters." Outside, the snow continued to fall, covering the valley in white promise, erasing the scars of last summer's battles, making everything new again. And inside the Blackwood Ranch, built from nothing, tested by fire, forged in struggle, a family settled in for the long winter, together, the way they'd face everything from now on: Nathan, Elena, Sarah, and the child soon to come. A family built not on blood alone, but on choice, on respect, on partnership, on love that had started as a business arrangement and grown into something far deeper, something permanent, something worth fighting for. Elena leaned into Nathan's embrace, felt his arms, strong, scarred, capable, wrap around her and their unborn child. "What are you thinking?" she asked. Nathan was quiet for a moment, then, "That I came to Montana 15 years ago, with nothing but my father's homestead and a dream, built an empire with bleeding hands, fought for every acre, defended every inch, and I'd give it all up, every acre, every head of cattle, every drop of water, if it meant keeping you and our child safe." He pulled back, met her eyes. "The land matters, the legacy matters. But you matter more." Elena's throat tightened. "Nathan Blackwood, are you going soft on me?" "Maybe," he smiled. "Or maybe I finally figured out what my father was trying to teach me all along." "What's that?" "That a man's legacy isn't the land he claims. It's the life he builds on it, the family he raises, the love he leaves behind when he's gone." He kissed her again, soft and slow and full of promise. Outside, the Montana winter howled. Inside, warmth and love, and the certain knowledge that they'd survive whatever came next, because they had each other, and that, more than land or water or legacy, that was everything. Elena Barnes had come to Montana territory with nothing but a satchel and desperate hope. She'd been rejected, humiliated, left with nowhere to go. But she'd found something better than security, better than the comfortable marriage she'd imagined with Matthew Wilson. She'd found partnership, respect, love, and a man who saw her not as property or investment or charity case, but as an equal, a builder, a fighter. A woman worth building a future with. Nathan Blackwood had spent 15 years building an empire, fighting for land and water and the right to call something his own. But his greatest victory hadn't been defeating Wilson in court, or securing the Logan property, or rebuilding after the fire. His greatest victory had been opening his heart to a woman who'd arrived with nothing, and discovering that nothing was exactly what he'd needed. Because with Elena, he'd built everything. As the snow fell and the fire crackled and their future grew inside Elena's womb, Nathan and Elena Blackwood stood together in their home, in their empire, in their love, and knew, with absolute certainty, that they'd found what they'd been searching for all along. Not security, not rescue, but home finally, completely, forever.